Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto and Sasuke's journey, uncovering secret powers and hidden heritage. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Sensei? 8-year-old Uchiha Sasuke stood, his arms crossed, watching with cold eyes as Akamichi Choji and Nara Shikamaru, both his age, stood opposite each other in front of their teacher, Amino Iruka, behind the ninja academy. A traditional shinobi spar was taking place. What? Iruka asked Choji, who looked a bit meek. I don't really want to beat up my friend. That's not what we're doing, this is a traditional shinobi spar, Iruka said, smiling. Even the Hokage and his friends trained like this to help them grow strong. Shikamaru didn't seem to listen, however. Instead, he just turned away and walked off. Sensei, I'm fine with losing by ring out, he announced, which made Choji smile. Call the next pair. Iruka sighed, exasperated, then gestured for Shikamaru to come back and said, fine. Shikamaru, Choji, the symbol of harmony. Next, as Choji and Shikamaru hooked their middle and index fingers with each other, Iruka looked over the clipboard in his hands, trying to decide on the next pair. Next is Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke. You're up. As Sasuke walked into the ring that had been drawn on the ground, the girls in his class squealed with joy. Sasuke hated when they did that. He thought that ignoring them would make them stop, but they seemed to love his loner personality. Ignoring them once more, he looked to the kid who walked into the ring with him. The boy had spiky, blonde hair, intense blue eyes, and 3 strange, whisker-like markings on each cheek. Sasuke could see that he shouldn't relax when it came to this boy, as his expression was very rebellious, and his already bruised knuckles, coupled with the faded bruise on his cheek and the butterfly bandage over the cut above his left eyebrow told him that this kid was a fighter. Let's do this, the other boy, Naruto, said with a grin that screamed defiance and confidence. Naruto, Iruka barked, placing his hand in a half-ram seal. Before the spar, you have to make the symbol of combat. It's the proper protocol. I couldn't give a crap. Naruto exclaimed brashly and very loudly. Just start the fight, yeah? So stupid. Sasuke muttered. Fine, I'll take you down in one. Stop, the both of you. Iruka ordered. Sheesh. Listen, these shinobi spars are a tradition that's been passed down for generations. I realize there's a lot of etiquette, but it's important, and here at the academy, we're teaching you the basics. First, you always face your opponent and point your fingers like this. This is the symbol of combat. It represents on half of a seal that might be used to activate a ninjutsu technique, and means, I've come to face you in battle. When the spar is over, both participants make the symbol of combat and lock their fingers together, to make the symbol of harmony and acknowledge that they are still comrades. This is all part of the proper etiquette for a shinobi spar, and Iruka stopped and twitched when he saw Naruto looking away, cleaning out his ear. Are you listening, Naruto? This is the second time I've told you this. Yeah. Say, yes, and say it once, you little brat. Naruto scoffed, but then smirked and formed the symbol of combat, staring into Sasuke's eyes, the Uchiha forming the same symbol. Begin, Iruka yelled out, and the two kids charged at each other. Sasuke was right when he had assumed that Naruto could fight. He was used to being strong and all, so when Naruto seemed to anticipate every strike and counter with the same efficiency as Sasuke himself, the Uchiha was understandably shocked. The two traded blows, and Sasuke, though entirely focused on the fight, noticed in the corner of his eye how the other students were staring in open shock. None of them had apparently been expecting Naruto to be this good. Sasuke grunted when he felt a punch connect with his stomach, hard. And when he hunched over, gritting his teeth, his mind's eye flashed back to that night, when he in a rage fueled by grief had charged at Itachi, who had delivered a similar punch to his stomach. Stumbling back, Sasuke glared at Naruto, and before his eyes the blonde's features changed. Instead of the spiky-haired, cocky blonde, there stood the source of his hatred, Uchiha Itachi. Sasuke felt that familiar rage fill him, and he charged at his brother with renewed vigor, taking him completely by surprise with his increased speed. He laid into him with punches, then managed to knock him to the ground, jumping on him and straddling him. His eyes wide with rage, Sasuke raised his fist, ready to pound Itachi's head to mush. Then, he heard the cheering of the girls in his class, and he heard Iruka's call of, "Sasuke wins." Which brought him back to the present. He saw Itachi's mouth curve up into a smirk. "Ho, I've seen eyes like that before," he said, and when he spoke, Sasuke heard Naruto's voice, and Itachi slowly warped back into Naruto, whose smirk faded to be replaced by a curious look. "But for once, it's not directed at me. Who are you looking at?" Sasuke felt himself twitch. He hesitated, then slowly got off Naruto as Iruka said, "Now, both of you make the symbol of harmony, and we'll move on." Naruto got to his feet and rubbed the bruise that had resurfaced on his cheek after Sasuke punched him rather hard on it. He put his hand in the symbol of combat, then held it out to Sasuke, giving him a calculating look. Sasuke grunted and did the same, hooking his fingers with Naruto's. They let go immediately, and Sasuke turned away, gritting his teeth. Later found Sasuke sitting on the Yondaime's head on the Hokage monument. He had never been up there before, but Iruka, who had noticed the look in Sasuke's eyes, had told him that it was a great place to just sit down and think. He said that he had gotten the idea from another student. When asked who, the teacher had just shrugged and walked away. Sasuke had to admit, he could see so much from up there. He felt so small, as though his problems were just a single drop in a vast ocean. "Oi," came a grumpy voice from behind Sasuke, interrupting his train of thought. Sasuke looked over his shoulder to see that kid from the academy, Naruto, standing there, his hands in the pockets of his beige cargo shorts. He hadn't changed shirts, so his white t-shirt still had blood spatter on it. Surprisingly, however, his busted lip had already healed, and the bruise on his cheek had almost completely faded. Naruto pointed at the stone where Sasuke sat. "You're in my seat. Don't see your name on it, loser," Sasuke snapped back, glaring at Naruto, whose face scrunched up in anger. "Want me to kick you off, you little shit? I'm as tall as you," Sasuke barked. Then, he scoffed and turned to look over the village again. "What are you doing here?" "I always come here," Naruto muttered as he walked up to Sasuke and sat down next to him. "The people in this village treat me like crap, so I come up here, and look over the whole village, and I dunno, I feel something." "Something?" Sasuke asked, raising an eyebrow. "An incredible need to protect this place," Naruto explained with a shrug. "I'm gonna be a great ninja, and continue the old man's work." "Old man? The Hokage Gigi. I'm gonna take over for him as Hokage one day. Then everyone in the village will acknowledge my existence." Sasuke scoffed in amusement. What a foolish dream. Suddenly, Sasuke found his collar grabbed by Naruto, who pulled him closer and glared into his eyes with an intensity that Sasuke had never seen before. There was a fire in Naruto's eyes that burned brightly enough to shock Sasuke into speechlessness. This kid had 100% confidence that his dream would come true. "Say that again," Naruto growled out angrily. "Jarif," Sasuke grunted, slapping Naruto's hands off his collar. He righted it again and lowered his head, so that half his face was covered by the high Uchiha trademark collar, gazing darkly out over the village. "I said it was a foolish dream. Empty words aren't going to make them reality. All dreams start out as words. They're the foundation you can build them on," Naruto said insistently. "Without dreams, we will fall into stagnation and our lives will become inconsequential." Sasuke blinked at that and slowly turned to look at the important-looking Naruto in confusion. "Stagnation? Inconsequential?" he asked curiously. "What's that mean?" "Dunno," Naruto said with a shrug. "But that's what Gigi told me when I told him about my dream, and if the Hokage says it, it must be important." "Ho, indeed, Naruto-kun." Both Naruto and Sasuke jumped in surprise and turned their heads to see none other than the elderly Sandaime Hokage standing behind them, smiling brightly. "Ah, Gigi," Naruto exclaimed as he shot to his feet, pointing accusingly at Sasuke. "This punk said my dream is dumb." "Tch." Sasuke pouted and looked away. "Don't be too hard on Sasuke-kun," the Sandaime said kindly, walking up and kneeling behind Sasuke, putting a hand on his shoulder. Sasuke's life has been rough recently, so it is understandable that he is skeptical. "But it's amazing that you two found each other up here." "Huh?" Naruto blinked, tilting his head to the side. "What are you on about, Gigi? You both have darkness in your lives, a darkness no one could ever understand," the Sandaime said, which made Sasuke's eyes widen as he turned his head to look at Naruto in shock. This kid had a rough life? I think that, of all the people in this village, you two are probably the ones who can understand and help each other the best. Sasuke looked skeptically at Naruto, who gave him an identical look. That pampered prince? Naruto asked at the exact same time as Sasuke said, that troublemaking idiot? The Sandame just chuckled as he patted both boys on the head and said, Haruka told me that you two sparred today, the strongest in the class. If you were that energetic during your spar, you should have gotten a feel for each other's reasons for fighting. Rising again, the Sandame smiled brightly at them. I believe, Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun, that if you two talk, you will become great friends. It's not good to keep everything bottled up inside. With that, the Sandame disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto looked a bit confused for a moment, then shrugged and plopped down next to Sasuke again, humming. What he mean? Had it rough? The blonde mumbled, and Sasuke's eyes darkened as he lowered his head again, hiding behind his collar. I don't want to talk about it. Fine, Naruto said with a shrug. Not like I want to talk to a punk like you, anyway. I just came here to enjoy the view. Sasuke scoffed, keeping his gaze on the village. The two sat in silence for a while, and Sasuke thought back to the spar he had had with Naruto earlier that day. The Sandame said that they should be able to understand each other, and Sasuke could remember that Itachi had said something similar once, that when two warriors clash, their minds connect, and their true feelings are displayed to each other. Slowly, Sasuke turned his head to look at Naruto, who kept his defiant look on his face as he looked over the village. You have determination, Sasuke spoke up suddenly, which made Naruto look at him. I got that from our spar. You're constantly trying to prove yourself, and the determination is just an outlet for all the hate you hold inside. Hatred for what? Why should I answer? You didn't. Sasuke gave another scoff and looked away from Naruto again. He contemplated for a moment, then said, I am from the Uchiha clan. My brother was the strongest of us all. He was my hero. For as long as I can remember, I have always wanted to be like him. Then, about a month ago, Sasuke closed his eyes and took a deep breath, the events flashing before his eyes. He contemplated avoiding telling Naruto, but felt that it might be best if he talked about it. About a month ago, my brother killed my entire clan, before fleeing the village. Naruto blinked in surprise at that. Wow, that sucks, I guess. What about you? Sasuke asked, hoping to find something else to focus on. What about me? Have you lost anyone? The Hokage said we'd understand each other, so. I don't think he meant it like that, Naruto said with a shrug. I've never lost a family member. Oh, Sasuke thought, and couldn't help but envy Naruto for how lucky he. Then again, I've never had any family to begin with. Huh? Sasuke blinked in surprise. Maybe Naruto wasn't so lucky after all? Yeah, I'm an orphan. No idea who my parents are. I think they died on the day I was born, during the Kyuubi attack, or something. Oh, Sasuke said slowly. Is that why you have such a suppressed hatred? Nope, I don't hate the Kyuubi, Naruto said, shaking his head. I don't really hate anything. That's total crap, Sasuke muttered, giving Naruto a skeptical look. The Hokage said that we'd be able to understand each other, since we sparred, and I felt a lot of hatred coming from you. Naruto scoffed, crossing his arms and turning away while muttering, what do you know? I know a look of hatred. I see it every time I look in the mirror. So tell me. Naruto kept his defiant look for a few moments, but then he seemed to deflate as he turned his head to look over the village. The villagers, I guess, he muttered. They think I'm blind and deaf, but I see and hear everything. Most of these people. They glare at me for no reason, and they whisper things about me, even though they don't know me. They whisper such hurtful things. Why would they do that? I mean, you're a troublemaking fool, but that's... Shut up, Naruto snapped. I only started causing trouble because they whispered a bunch of crap. Sasuke's eyes widened at that. Then, why are they whispering? Dunno, Naruto said with a shrug. They've been doing it for as long as I can remember. When I ask the old man, he gets all dodgy and changes the subject. So, you have no idea what it's like to lose family. And I have no idea what it's like to not have family in the first place, or be whispered about by the villagers. Sasuke muttered, furrowing his brow. How, exactly, are we meant to understand each other? Well, I don't think Gigi meant that we'd understand the thingy itself, but the pain it caused. The thingy? The GG has a word for it, but I can't page, prawn. I can't say it, you should work on that. Gimme a break, alright? I never had someone to teach me properly. Sasuke scoffed in amusement as he looked over the village again, a small smirk on his face. You're pretty useless, aren't you? Shut up, I'll kick you down from here. As Sasuke walked into the academy the following day, he couldn't help but feel happy? Yes, it was probably happiness that he felt. He and Naruto had talked a lot the previous evening. They had found that the Sandame was right. Though their situations were vastly different, they had connected thanks to the fact that the pain they felt was very similar, despite being so radically different. Also, Sasuke felt quite proud of himself for having spent most of the night studying a dictionary so that he could confuse Naruto with big words the following day. Sasuke looked around the classroom, finding two fangirls sitting on either side of the seat he had taken the previous day. They were watching him expectantly, and Sasuke felt very reluctant to go there, so he desperately searched for another spot to sit in. He found it, and as luck would have it, the seat was next to Naruto, who was resting his head on his arms, snoozing peacefully. Yo, Sasuke said as he came up to Naruto and sat down next to him. Naruto opened a single eye and looked at him. Yo, he muttered back, yawning. You look tired. I was up late last night, Sasuke said, smirking. He didn't need to tell him why he'd been up. He'd just settle for using the fruits of his labor. Yeah, same here, Naruto said with a nod. I'm very haggard. I spent most of last night reading a dictionary. It was exhilarating and refreshing at the same time as it was vexatious. Sasuke twitched. He narrowed his eyes and looked away, realizing that he had no idea what that last word meant. I also studied a dictionary, but I never got that far into it. Yeah, those words were probably the only words I bothered to actually memorize properly, Naruto said, sighing tiredly. It's way too much of a hassle to bother with big words. Alright, settle down, came Iruka's voice as the Chunin teacher entered the classroom. As usual, this had no effect whatsoever on the class, who kept chattering with each other. Iruka twitched once, took a deep breath, and yelled out, "Shut the hell up." This, as usual, got their attention, and classes got started. After the class was let out for the day, Naruto and Sasuke didn't go to their respective homes. Instead, they headed to the library, and Sasuke couldn't help but notice the look Naruto got from the librarian, who had looked on the verge of kicking him out before she saw Sasuke accompanying him. He didn't voice this, however, as Naruto was in a good mood, since he had finally gotten a friend. Well, Sasuke hadn't officially said that they were friends, and though he was loath to admit it, he saw Naruto as one. He didn't really know why. They had just clicked somehow. So now, they were looking through scroll after scroll, researching ninja and chakra as much as possible. Naruto had wanted to spend the day at Ichiraku Ramen, but Sasuke had convinced him to go to the library. After all, he couldn't grow strong enough to become Hokage and get everyone to acknowledge him by spending his days at the ramen stand. Sensor ninja, medic ninja, offensive ninja, defensive ninja, genjutsu specialist, ninjutsu specialist, taijutsu specialist. Naruto muttered, looking through his 13th scroll that day. There's so much to choose from. How do you know which one fits you? I'll be an offensive type, I think, Sasuke said, humming. Yeah, definitely. I'll also specialize in all three: ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. Huh? You don't seem the genjutsu type, Naruto said, tilting his head to the side. Well, not right now, but when I get my Sharingan, it'll come naturally. Naruto stared at Sasuke for a long time. Rin, gone. I'll tell you later. Shrugging, Naruto looked back down at the scroll, furrowing his brow in thought, and picked up another one, clicking his tongue and muttering, I think I'd make a good censor. Also, I'll probably be a mix of offensive and defensive, specializing in ninjutsu and taijutsu. It'd be good to have a censor on the team, Sasuke said, nodding slowly. On the team? Well, we're going to be on the same team, aren't we? You're probably the only one in the academy I can stand. And hopefully, that Hyuga girl will end up with us, too, as she's probably the only girl who doesn't follow me around like a lost puppy. I didn't know we get to pick our teammates. We don't, but we can manipulate things so that we do. Naruto blinked slowly. Then, he ordered, explain. From what I can tell, they pair the highest scoring boy and girl with the lowest scoring boy. Therefore, I will become Rookie of the Year, as is expected of me, but you get barely passing grades, and become dead last. That way, we'll end up on the same team, even if you're just below me in power. You sound confident in your own power. I'm an Uchiha, so I have a right to be, was the only explanation Sasuke gave, which made Naruto snort. Then, Naruto burst out laughing, and Sasuke was incredibly surprised to find that he was joining in the laughter. Naruto. Sasuke barked in an uncharacteristically loud voice. Around his friend, dare he say best friend, Sasuke had always been different. He was a lot happier, he supposed one could call it. It had now been 6 months since they met, and Sasuke had found something more to live for. When his clan was killed, he had thought that everyone he cared about had disappeared. All he had seen in front of him was Itachi, and his desire to kill the man. Now, however, he had realized that although the Uchiha clan would always be very dear to him, and he would always miss them, he could get new people who were precious to him. Granted, he had only found one person who he could call precious, but still. Also, his clan could be revived. That responsibility rested on Sasuke's shoulders now, if he wanted to bring the clan back to greatness. Therefore, he couldn't just focus all his attention on getting strong enough to kill Itachi. After all, if he failed, then the Uchiha clan would be forever gone from Konoha. Naruto. Sasuke came to a sudden halt when he reached their clearing in Training Area 3, where he and Naruto had been given permission to train. He found Naruto sitting in the very center, looking around with a bright smile on his face. Why was he smiling? Because trees had sprouted from the ground around him, trees that Sasuke was 100% sure hadn't been there before. How? Oh, hey, Sasuke. Naruto said, getting to his feet and jogging over to Sasuke. Isn't this cool? I can create trees. How did you do that? Wood isn't an element, Sasuke said, eyes still wide in shock. Their senses had sharpened enough that they weren't surprised when the Sandame appeared in the clearing. They heard him the second his sandal touched the dirt. I would also like to know that, Naruto-kun, the Sandame spoke up, staring at Naruto curiously. Well, I just sat there, meditating, and suddenly I started molding chakra, but it felt different, somehow, like my chakra was split in two. So, I tried putting it together again, and, poof, Naruto finished lamely, gesturing for the trees around them. Naruto-kun, did you know that the wood release is a bloodline limit? The Sandame said seriously, making both Naruto and Sasuke go wide-eyed. Whoa, Naruto exclaimed, a grin appearing on his face as he turned to Sasuke. Did you hear that, Sasuke? I have a bloodline, too. Indeed you do, Naruto-kun. Have any of you heard of the wood release before? I've heard it mentioned by my father once, I think, Sasuke said, scratching his head. Other than that, no. Nope. The wood release was the special bloodline ability of the Shodai Hokage, boys, the Sandame said, and it didn't take more than a second for both Naruto and Sasuke to realize what he was saying. Holy mother hovering crap, Naruto exclaimed, eloquently putting into words what both boys felt. I'm related to the Shodai Hokage? And in turn the Nidame, Naruto-kun, the Sandame said, nodding. How? I do not know. I didn't think either of your parents were related to them. The Nidame never had any children, and the last known descendant of the Shodai is. The Sandame's eyes widened. No, it couldn't be. Naruto blinked, then looked at Sasuke, who shrugged. Neither of them needed to speak in order to know that the other had no clue what the Sandame was talking about. The old Hokage seemed to realize this, as he smiled at them. The last known descendant of the Shodai Hokage was the son of Senju Tsunade. However, she was forced to give him up for adoption, against the wishes of the village, of course, as she didn't think she could be trusted to raise a child. I believe that fate somehow intervened, and the child remained in the village despite everything. A smirk slowly spread on the Sandame's face. Naruto-kun, I believe you now deserve to find out the truth about your parents, he said, making Naruto's eyes widen, along with Sasuke's, as Naruto had told him that the Sandame had often said that it would be too dangerous for the blonde to know. Why don't we talk somewhere more private? Can Sasuke come? Naruto asked hopefully. 'Cause you know I'll tell him anyway. The Sandame looked at Sasuke, who thought for a moment that the old man doubted he could be trusted. Those thoughts were unfounded, however, as the Sandame smiled not even half a second later. Of course, good friends should never have to hide things from each other, after all. Secrets create a rift between them that can almost never be mended. So, Sasuke-kun, would you like to come along as well? Yes, Hokage-sama, Sasuke said eagerly, nodding. If Naruto was related to the Shodai Hokage, he wanted to know about it. The Sandaime reached out and placed a hand on their shoulders, and then all three disappeared in a blur. They reappeared inside the Hokage's mansion, in the Sandaime's office, to be exact. The walls were lined with scrolls, showing that was all the Sandaime did in this office, work on all manner of ninjutsu. Sit down, the Sandaime said, gesturing for 4 cushions on the floor. He sat down on one of them with the usual old person groan, and Naruto and Sasuke sat down as well, watching him eagerly. The Sandaime's gentle, grandfatherly look was replaced by a stern and serious one. Now, Naruto-kun, I want you to remember that this is very sensitive information, and that your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and even your great-great-grandparents had enemies that would love to kill you simply out of spite. Therefore, I would like you two to keep this information to yourselves, until I deem you strong enough to protect yourself. Is that clear? Yes, Gigi, Naruto said, and Sasuke nodded in agreement. Very well. Your mother, Naruto-kun, was Uzumaki Kushina, a member of the great Uzumaki clan of Uzushigakure no Sato, a now destroyed village situated on an island to the east of Fire Country. This clan was known for their great proficiency with sealing techniques and their longevity. She was an amazingly strong woman, and very hot-tempered. The Sandaime paused for a moment, and then gave a small chuckle. In her youth, she was teased in the ninja academy because of her round face and red hair. The children took to calling her Tomato. Naruto gave an audible snort, and Sasuke had to suppress a smirk, knowing that was the kind of name Naruto would have come up with for someone like that. The Sandaime hummed and put a hand on his chin, rubbing it thoughtfully. Of course, that all changed when she started pummeling those who teased her, prompting the children to call her the red hot-blooded habanero. Naruto tensed, and Sasuke knew his friend well enough to know that Naruto had suddenly decided not to go name-calling anymore, unless the name Kali actually deserved it. Well, what about my dad? Naruto asked, shaking off the horrible thought of being pummeled by an angry redhead. Was he a super cool ninja, or something? Oh, he was super cool, alright, the Sandaime said with a nod. Your father is the main reason why your true heritage was kept hidden from you. In the last great shinobi war, he made a great enemy out of Iwa. He was the man who would one day rise to become the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha, Namikaze Minato. Sasuke felt his jaw muscles slacken, and his jaw dropped in shock. Glancing to his right, he saw that Naruto had the same reaction, staring at the Sandaime in open shock. My old man was. That's right, Naruto-kun, your father was the Yondaime Hokage, who I now suspect to have been adopted. I believe he may have actually been Tsunade's biological son. The reason why I haven't told you, or anyone else, about this, is that you are, I'm sorry for saying this, a loudmouth, Naruto-kun. Sasuke couldn't suppress a smirk at seeing Naruto twitch in indignation at hearing that. Naruto-kun, if I had told you, then you would have screamed it out to whoever would listen at every chance you had. This would have been brought to Iwa's attention, and they may have tried to kidnap you. TCH. Naruto crossed his arms and pouted. I suppose. However, I didn't want to keep it from you any longer. Now, you are going to need training. There is a man here in Konoha who is quite proficient at using Mokuton ninjutsu. And no, Naruto-kun, he is not a senju, the Sandaime added at seeing Naruto's face brightening. He was experimented on at a young age, and had Shodai-sama's genes implanted in him by a criminal of this village. He is currently serving in the Anbu forces, but I'm going to recall him to be your instructor when it comes to Mokuton ninjutsu. Naruto grinned widely at that. Thanks a lot, Gigi, he exclaimed, then turned to Sasuke. Let's both become super powerful, yeah? Hey, Sasuke scoffed, smirking. As if I'd let you become stronger than me, you fool. The Sandaime stared intently at the two children for a while. Then, his eyes closed as he gave a bright smile, chuckling softly. Naruto twitched, and a disgusted look appeared on his face. Oi, Gigi, why are you smiling like that? Are you a pedophile? It was the Sandaime's turn to twitch. Naruto. Today's the day, HN. Naruto and Sasuke were heading for the Ninja Academy. 4.5 years had passed since that day when they discovered Naruto's heritage, and everything had been proceeding according to plan. Naruto and Sasuke spent every day studying or training, or both. However, because of how the teams were sorted, Naruto had stuck with the plan and pretended to be a nobody in class, getting barely passing grades. It had been difficult, though, to get worse grades than Shikamaru. That boy was a genius, but too lazy to lift a pen. Therefore, his grades should have been the poorest, but since they were the same as Naruto's, the blonde had to take drastic measures by adding poor attendance to the list. This had earned him the position of dead last. The two were dressed sharply enough, Naruto wearing a pair of black sandals, black ninja pants with a shuriken holster and a kunai holster strapped to his right leg, and a loose, long-sleeved, black ninja shirt that had been rolled up to just below his elbows, revealing the sleeves of the mesh shirt he wore underneath. Under the shirt, which had a fur collar much like that of the venerable Naidame Hokage, over the mesh, Naruto wore plate armor. He also had 2 kunai pouches behind his back, and a black, 3-inch wide bracelet on each wrist. Sasuke wore black sandals, black ninja pants with 2 shuriken holsters on his right leg, a black muscle shirt over a mesh shirt, under plate armor, which was hidden by a black, long-sleeved shirt complete with the trademark high collar of the Uchiha, and the Uchiha clan crest on the back. He had only 1 kunai pouch, which was on the left side of his back, as a black shakudo was tucked into his red obi behind his back on his right side. He had identical bracelets on his own wrists. My awesome score in the upcoming exam won't change my overall grade, will it? Naruto asked curiously, and Sasuke shook his head. No, the exam is just to show that you can do what they want you to do, the Uchiha said. His voice was warmer than it had once been, but it was only like that when he was talking to Naruto, or whoever else he felt had earned his respect, such as the Sandaime Hokage, and Naruto's teacher, who went by the code name Yamato. Hey, then it'll be good to show these punks how good I really am, Naruto said, punching his fist into his open palm. Of course, most of the academy already knew how strong he really was. After all, Sasuke's fangirls had spied on a lot of their lighter training sessions, and even then it was intense. And since Naruto could easily keep up with Sasuke, they had figured out that he was just acting in class, and had naturally spread the word. Sasuke blinked once and looked at Naruto. Who is it this time? I'm not molding chakra right now, Naruto said, crossing his arms. So I haven't the slightest. Then mold some? Naruto's left eyebrow slowly rose, and he turned his head to look at Sasuke, who sighed. Please mold some? Naruto nodded and closed his eyes, activating his keen chakra sensing abilities. He located all 5 people who were following them, and identified their chakra signatures. The usual fangirls on our 6, and on the rooftop at 4 o'clock is Hinata. Hinata? Haven't had her following us around for about a week, Sasuke commented. It was widely known that Hinata was probably the only girl in the academy who wasn't a fangirl. Instead, she was an admirer. She didn't admire Sasuke, however, but instead it was Naruto who she focused her attention on. She had told Kiba, who had told Shikamaru, who had told Ino, who had told Sasuke that she admired Naruto for his determination and will to never give up, even when looked down upon by the general populace of the village. She greatly admired his character, but was too shy to talk to him. Still suck at the bunshin, though. Naruto muttered, bringing the topic back to the exam. Dunno how I'm gonna pull that one off. Way ahead of you, Sasuke said confidently. Don't worry, you'll pass with flying colors. The Hokage said that the bunshin is the most basic of clones, and that's the minimum requirement for graduating. Sasuke didn't need to say anything else, as Naruto made the realization right away. Ah, so any clone will do. I'll avoid the Moku bunshin, wood clone, and just go with the Kage bunshin, shadow clone. Don't want to reveal my special skills too quickly. And so, there they stood, in the ninja academy. Or rather, they were outside. Currently, they were doing the physical portion of the exam. Needless to say, Naruto shocked the hell out of Iruka when he aced the kunai and shuriken throwing, beat everyone in the stamina portion, and fought Sasuke to a standstill in a spar. Naruto even did well in genjutsu, even though it wasn't his area of expertise. Despite his terrible skill with them, compared to his nin and taijutsu, he could still cast genjutsu that were above average in power, not something just anyone could do, and he could identify and cancel them no problem. Next came the ninjutsu portion. Naruto was almost disappointed with the fact that only a henge, bunshin, and a kawarimi needed to be performed to pass. Alright, Naruto, just create 2 fully functional bunshin, and you'll pass, Iruka said, looking very pleasantly surprised at Naruto's performance. Naruto nodded and put his hands in a cross seal. Without speaking the words, he created 2 kage bunshin, which made the Chunin teacher's eyes widen in surprise. These are kage bunshin. The Jiji says that my chakra stores are too big for me to create a normal bunshin, Naruto said with a shrug. Well, you pass, Naruto. Congratulations, Iruka said, picking up one of the Hite 8 on the table in front of him and handing it to Naruto, who shook his head. It's cool, I've got my own, he said and reached into his kunai pouch, taking out a scroll and opening it. He placed his hand on a seal in the scroll, and in a poof of smoke, a gray Hapori with the Konoha symbol engraved on the forehead appeared, landing in Naruto's hand. It was old and scratched here and there, and Iruka's eyes widened. Naruto, is that? The Nidaim's Hapori, Naruto said with a nod as he put the scroll in his kunai pouch again, before putting on the Hapori. Yeah, the Jiji gave it to me. Well, later, sensei. With that, Naruto left the classroom, finding Sasuke waiting for him outside, already wearing his Hite 8. They didn't need to speak. Instead, Naruto just grinned and pointed with his thumb up at his Hapori. Big surprise there, Sasuke said, looking bored. So, do we eat and then train, or do we train and then eat? Let's go eat first, yeah? Celebrate our graduation, Naruto said, still grinning as he and Sasuke walked off. Starting today, all of you are real shinobi, Iruka said happily to the gathered graduates the next day, smiling proudly. But you are still genin. The hard journey that lies ahead has just started. Now you will soon get missions to help the village. So today, we will create the 3-man teams, and each of you will have a Junin sensei. You will follow your sensei's instructions in order to successfully complete your missions. Now, we tried to balance each team's strength, the Chunin said as he looked down at the clipboard in his hand. Alright, Team 1. Naruto, who was sitting next to Sasuke, nudged his best friend with his elbow. Hey, did you find out which girl got the highest score? I think Hinata and Sakura were at the top, Sasuke said quietly, staring out the window. I couldn't find out which one, though. I hope it's Hinata. It'd be nice to have the girl of the team fawning over someone other than me. If it is Hinata, we're going to have to do something about her shyness. Agreed. Okay, next is Team 7. Hyuga Hinata, Uzumaki Naruto, and Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto and Sasuke both got identical smirks on their faces and gave each other a high five. Out of the corner of his eye, Naruto saw that Hinata had gone beet red in her seat, her eyes wide as saucers. Hey, Iruka-sensei, Shikamaru spoke up, sounding bored as usual. Aren't the teams supposed to be balanced? Why are you placing the 3 strongest on the same team? Because, Shikamaru, though it's widely known that Naruto is as strong as Sasuke, we selected the teams based on grades, and Naruto came in dead last. I believe the 2 knew about how the teams would be decided, after all. The smirks on Naruto and Sasuke's faces said it all. Alright, next is Team 8, which will consist of Haruno Sakura, Inazuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino, Iruka said, continuing to read from his clipboard. Team 9 is still in rotation from last year, and Team 10 will be Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akamichi Choji. He cleared his throat, then smiled. Okay, this afternoon we'll introduce your Junin sensei. Until then, take a break. Hinata, Naruto called as everyone rose from their seats. The Hyuga heiress jumped at being addressed by her crush and spun to face him, completely red-faced still. Sasuke and I are gonna grab some lunch, you wanna come? Aye. Hinata started poking her fingers together, ducking her head down, which made Naruto and Sasuke share a look with each other, eyebrows raised. Sure, Naruto-kun. Dango today, then? Naruto asked Sasuke, who nodded as they walked up to Hinata. Dango alright with you, Hinata? It's fine, Hinata muttered, still keeping her head down. Naruto looked to Sasuke, who shrugged. The newly made Team 7 headed to a nearby dango shop, where Naruto and Sasuke each ordered 10 sticks, and Hinata ordered 5. You didn't pack lunch? Naruto asked Hinata as they waited for their food. Come to think of it, I've never seen you bring lunch. No, I go back home to eat lunch. Hinata said quietly. What about you two? Sasuke prefers dango, but he can't make it, and me. Well, the last time I tried cooking, Sasuke and I had to battle the ensuing creation to the death. Hinata giggled at that, especially at the look on Sasuke's face when he thought back to the monster stew. A stew shouldn't have been able to grow tentacles, damn it. So, Hinata, Naruto said as their order arrived, watching as Hinata jumped at being addressed. Why don't you give us a rundown of your abilities, Sasuke and I know each other's skills well enough, but we have no idea about you. Oh, I'm kind of weak. Hinata mumbled shyly, ducking her head. Yeah, we don't buy that, Sasuke said simply. If you were weak, you wouldn't have scored top of the class. How about we go first? Give small introductions, he said, looking to Naruto for confirmation and getting a nod. Alright, I'm Uchiha Sasuke. I specialize in ninjutsu and genjutsu. My chakra control is excellent, and my strength is above average. I don't have the best stamina, but it's not lousy, either. My preferred jutsu are Kaiden Jutsu. Uzumaki Naruto, Naruto said, raising his hand unnecessarily in greeting. I specialize in ninjutsu and taijutsu. I'm also a very accomplished sensor. My chakra control is good, but could be better, and my strength is amazing. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I get by. My stamina is monstrous. And my preferred jutsu are Doden and Suiden Jutsu, and the secret type. Secret type? Hinata asked, blinking at the grin on Naruto's face. To be revealed at a later date, Naruto said, nodding. Now I'm Hyuga Hinata. I guess I specialize in taijutsu. My Byakugan makes me a good sensor, I suppose. My chakra control is excellent, like Sasuke-kun's, but I'm kind of weak physically. My stamina is also not that great. My preferred jutsu or my clan jutsu. So, only one of us has any focus on genjutsu, Sasuke said, crossing his arms and closing his eyes in thought. I know you have a pretty low opinion of yourself, Hinata, but I need you to think carefully about your skills. Do you have anything else that could contribute? Well, I do make my own medicine. Alright, that's great, Naruto said with a bright grin. So you'll act as our support, and can also patch up Sasuke and me when we rush into battle headfirst, yeah? Sasuke corrected, which got him a glare from Naruto. Shut up, you know it all. Hinata giggled softly at their antics, and even more so during their meal, when Naruto demonstrated his 4-in-1 technique, where he tilted his head back and put an entire dango stick down his throat like a sword swallower, chomped his teeth down on it, and pulled it out, clean, and swallowing the dumplings whole. Naruto muttered afterward, clutching his stomach. Those always feel too big going down. It's like they swelled to twice their size as soon as I swallow them. Sasuke chuckled softly, while Hinata giggled. When the food had been devoured, the trio got up and headed back to the academy, where they waited. And waited. Naruto? Sasuke said after 2 hours of waiting. The blonde was sitting at his desk, his eyes closed. Someone's finally approaching, Naruto said grumpily. Damn bastard, making us wait. Way to make a first impression. The door opened, revealing a man wearing the traditional Junin uniform, along with a mask that covered the lower half of his face, and a headband that was pulled down to cover his left eye. His hair, gray, looked as though it was defying gravity. He raised a gloved hand in greeting. Yo, boys and girl. I'll be your Junin sensei, he spoke lazily, then looked around and thought. This place is a bit stuffy. Let's go up to the roof, yeah? With that, he left the classroom, and Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata, looking at each other strangely, shrugged and followed him up to the roof, where they sat down in front of the man, who was leaning back against the railing. Well, let's begin with introducing ourselves, the man said, his arms crossed. What do you want to know, sensei? Hinata asked softly. How about your likes, dislikes, your dreams for the future, and things like that? The Junin said with a shrug. How about you go first? Sasuke asked. Yeah, you look very suspicious. Naruto muttered, narrowing his eyes. Oh, me? Well, my name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have no desire to tell you my likes and dislikes. Dreams for the future. And I have lots of hobbies. All three members of Team 7 sweat dropped at the lame introduction. Kakashi was unperturbed, however, and just smiled and pointed at Naruto. Alright, now it's your turn. Start from the right. Uzumaki Naruto, as everyone knows, Naruto said, saluting Kakashi. I like training, the few friends I have, nature, and meditating. I don't like idiots or warmongers. As for my hobbies, well, my only hobby is training, I guess. And my dream is to become Hokage and surpass all my predecessors. Good, good. Next, my name is Uchiha Sasuke. I like training, swords, and meditating. My dislikes mostly consist of idiots and a certain man. My hobby is training, and my dream. I don't really have dreams, but rather goals. The resurrection of the Uchiha clan, to kill that certain man, and to become Hokage. Though that last one is gonna have to remain a dream, Naruto supplied with a grin, while Sasuke gave a scoff of amusement. Kakashi was staring at the two of them with something akin to warmth in his eye. To think that those two would become friends. I think this will be good for them, he thought, then looked at Hinata. Okay, you're last. My name is Hyuga Hinata. I like zenzai and cinnamon rolls, and Hinata stopped and blushed hard. She shook her head, deciding to leave that last part out. I dislike those who look down on others. My hobby is pressing flowers. And my dream is to become a Hyuga worthy of being the head of the clan, and to abolish the caged bird seal from the branch family. Kakashi hummed softly as he looked over his 3 genin. Then, he nodded. Okay, that's it for the introductions. Tomorrow, we'll start our duties as shinobi. First of all, we're going to do something with just the 4 of us. What is it, Kakashi-sensei? Hinata asked softly. Survival training, Kakashi said seriously. Survival training? Sasuke repeated curiously. We did enough of that in the academy. This isn't a normal training. This time, I'm your opponent, Kakashi said, making everyone's eyes widen. He chuckled softly. What's so funny? Naruto asked with a slight glare, still a little ticked that they found out nothing about the man. Oh, well, it's just that when I tell you this, you guys are going to freak out. Just spit it out, damn it, don't keep us in suspense. Of the 27 graduates, only 9 will be chosen to become genin. The rest will be sent back to the academy. This training is a very difficult exam with a failure rate of over 66%. Everyone's eyes went even wider than before at that, and Kakashi just laughed and pointed at them. I told you you'd freak out. Then what the hell was graduation for? Naruto growled out. Oh, that was just to select those who have the potential to become genin. It takes more than a couple of jutsu to become one, after all, Kakashi said. Anyway, tomorrow you have to show your real skills on the training ground. Bring all the shinobi tools you have. Oh, and skip breakfast, or you might throw up. As his genin once more went wide-eyed, Kakashi took 3 pieces of paper out of his kunai pouch and held them out to them. The details are on this paper. And don't be late tomorrow. Good morning, everyone, Naruto said happily as the 3 genin met in training area 7 the next day. None of them looked tired, which was good, and none of them looked hungry, either, which was better. As Sasuke had said earlier, it was better to throw up than fight on an empty stomach. I'm guessing our sensei is going to be late again, Sasuke said, his hands in his pockets. Hinata nodded. I detect a pattern emerging, she mumbled softly. Well, better make good use of the time we have, Naruto said as he sat down in the lotus position, his eyes drifting shut. I'll keep a lookout for him, and Sasuke, you come up with some good battle plans. Sasuke nodded and sat down, humming. Alright, Hinata, you are proficient in the Jukin, gentle fist, right? I am not as good as my father or my sister, but I guess. Sasuke was quiet for a moment, his eyes still closed. Then, he spoke up. Alright, listen up. I'm sure we're all very strong, but none of us can win against a Junin alone. Therefore, we're going to have to work together if we want to beat him. If it comes down to a fight, which it most likely will, Naruto will be acting as support. And Naruto-kun will? Hinata asked, blinking. But, I thought you said, I would be support? I did say that, but Naruto has special jutsu in this case perfect for distracting and capturing Kakashi from a distance. While Naruto is distracting him, you and I will come at him in taijutsu. I'll go high, you go low. If you can, target his nuts. Naruto gave an audible snort at that and opened his eyes to see Hinata turning beet red again. Wow, that's kinda cruel, Sasuke, Naruto said in amusement. Are you sure you want to put Kakashi Teme through that? Punishment for being late, Sasuke said simply. I do, of course, have other plans as well. I want you to memorize them perfectly. Now, plan B. They waited for another 2 hours, before Kakashi finally arrived, and he had the audacity to wave happily at them as if he was right on time. Good morning, everyone. You're late, Teme. Naruto exclaimed angrily. Isn't that unbecoming of a Junin? Ah, so sorry. See, a black cat crossed my path, and… Stop lying, you're wasting our time, Sasuke said coldly, his arms crossed, which made Kakashi sweat drop. How serious, he thought with a sigh. He took off his backpack and set it down next to the 3 wooden poles in the clearing, before fishing out an alarm clock and setting it down on the pole. Okay, it's set for noon, he announced, taking 2 bells out of his kunai pouch and holding them out. Here are 2 bells. Your task is to take these from me before the time's up. Those who don't have a bell by noon gets no lunch. I'll not only tie you to one of those stumps, but I'll also eat right in front of you. Kakashi didn't see the hungry, devastated faces he had been expecting to see. Instead, the 2 boys of the group were glaring at him, and the girl was staring shyly at the ground. Kakashi blinked slowly, but then shook his head and continued. You only have to get 1 bell. There are only 2, so one of you will definitely be tied to the stump. And, the person who doesn't take a bell fails. So at least one of you will be sent back to the academy, Kakashi said, smirking at the shocked looks on their faces. If you want, you can use your weapons. You won't succeed if you don't come at me with the intent to kill. Any questions? Not getting any questions, Kakashi nodded and took a deep breath, his eye closed. Alright, then, begin. With that, all 4 of them dashed off. TCH, Naruto uttered as he hid in a tree, a disgusted look on his face. Pitting his students against not only himself, but each other as well. Yeah, came Sasuke's voice from behind him as his friend landed on the same branch. This guy's something else, and from what the rumor mill says, he's not someone to toy with, either. So, what do you think? I think the same thing you do, Naruto said, as though it was obvious. Neither of us wants to be sent back to the academy, but it'd be a shitty thing for us to do to team up and let Hinata fend for herself. Besides, she's probably the only girl I can stand. So, we can either have one of us go back to the academy, or Hinata. Sasuke muttered, a smirk appearing on his face. That Kakashi Yaro. That kind of guy just pisses me off. So, what do we do? Naruto asked, crossing his arms. I say we figure out a way to get all 3 to pass, Sasuke said, his smirk widening. And how do we do that? We steal everything he has. If Kakashi had seen the duo, he would have become very scared upon seeing the identical smirks on their faces. Meanwhile, Hinata was hiding behind a tree, her eyes closed. She was feeling devastated. Only 2 may pass, and everyone knew that Naruto and Sasuke were the best of friends, so there was little doubt that they would team up to defeat Kakashi, leaving Hinata to herself. Hinata couldn't help but feel so disappointed. She had finally done it. She had finally managed to end up on the same team as Naruto, and now they were going to be separated? It just wasn't fair. Yo! Hinata would have eeped in fright, had a hand not suddenly covered her mouth as she jumped. She looked over her shoulder to see that it was Naruto standing behind her and covering her mouth. Naruto was touching her. Naruto let out a, huh? When he saw Hinata's eyes get unfocused as her face once more went beet red. Thankfully, though, she managed to keep from passing out, as Naruto let go of her. Anyway, Hinata, Sasuke's already in position for Plan F, Naruto said, jutting his thumb over his shoulder. You better get ready too. But Hinata blinked in confusion. There are only 2 bells. Naruto-kun, you should. Now, we're a team now, Naruto said, grinning slightly. Sasuke and I wouldn't feel right leaving you behind, so we're doing this as a team. Besides, we'll be stealing more than just the bells from that Kakashi Yaro. We'll be stealing enough to pass 18 genin. Naruto winked at Hinata, then jumped off to get in position. In the meantime, Kakashi was standing in a clearing near the river running through Training Area 7, looking around and stretching his senses. His sense of smell could easily detect his students, and he could sense their chakra as well. They've hidden themselves well. The most important thing for a shinobi is to be able to hide themselves, after all. They could probably hide from a Chunin at this level. Wait, Kakashi blinked as he focused on Sasuke's chakra signature. Then, his eyes widened when he felt that it was really Naruto's. Had he created a clone and manipulated his chakra to feel like Sasuke's? The soft thump of a sandal landing on the dirt was all the warning Kakashi got, before he had to duck under a swing from Sasuke's Chikudo. The Uchiha kept spinning and aimed a kick at Kakashi's head, forcing the Junin to leap away. More footsteps were heard behind him, and Kakashi leapt away yet again to avoid a Juken strike from Hinata. All three had teamed up so soon? He honestly hadn't been expecting that. Both genin charged at Kakashi, who dodged and dodged. Sasuke swung high with his Chikudo, and Hinata went after his abdomen with her Juken, forcing him to lean and twist without pause in order to avoid being hit. Considering they focused on only taijutsu and kenjutsu, he felt it would be unfair at this point to use ninjutsu. After all, this was partly to test their abilities. Now, Naruto. Sasuke called suddenly, and Kakashi's eye widened. The only warning he got was a slight rumbling in the ground, before wooden poles shot out of it, wrapping around his arms and legs. What? Kakashi exclaimed, his eye wide. He didn't have time to think about it, however, as Hinata reached him just then, and slammed her chakra-laced palm into his chest. Only for Kakashi to disappear in a poof of smoke, replaced by a log. Kawarimi. Sasuke muttered with a scoff. He can't have gone far. Indeed he hadn't, as just then, Kakashi blurred into view behind Naruto, who was hiding behind a pair of bushes, a kunai at his throat. Naruto's hands were in a snake seal, and Kakashi smiled at the blonde. Oh ho, Mokuton ninjutsu, huh? Haven't seen that for a while. However, this is the end for you, Naruto. Really? Naruto asked with a smirk. In a flash, his hand was planted on the ground, and Kakashi only had a millisecond to react before a wooden spike burst out of the ground beneath him, forcing him to leap into the clearing again. He wasn't given any breathing room, as Hinata was on him in an instant. She didn't strike as fiercely or quickly as some of the Hyuga Kakashi had sparred with in the past, but she was impressive nonetheless. However, he had no trouble keeping up. As he stepped back to avoid another strike, Kakashi noticed out of the corner of his eye how Sasuke had just finished a string of hand seals. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu, Fire Element, Grand Fireball Technique. Sasuke brought his hand to his mouth and unleashed a massive fireball, sending it hurling at Kakashi and Hinata, the Junin going wide-eyed. Gukaku? Impossible. A genin shouldn't have that much chakra. And he's aiming for Hinata as well. Evidently, Sasuke had been confident that Hinata wouldn't be hurt, and so was Hinata, apparently, as she looked quite calm. Suddenly, wood burst from the ground and enveloped Hinata in a protective wooden dome just as the fire reached them. Kakashi jumped into the air to avoid the fireball, which smashed into the wooden dome and exploded. More wooden poles burst from the ground and shot up at Kakashi, wrapping around his wrists and ankles, before forcefully yanking him down to the ground. Kakashi slammed hard into the ground on his back and grunted. Sure, he hadn't even used half his power in this spar, but still. These kids were already Chunin level. He was brought out of his musings as his three genin came walking up to him, staring down at the pinned Junin. Then, Naruto knelt next to him and grabbed the bells, tossing them to Sasuke, who gave one to Hinata. That's some self-sacrificing you're showing there, Naruto, Kakashi spoke calmly, despite the situation he was in. Are you sure you want to be sent back to the academy? I won't be sent back, Naruto said with a grin as he grabbed Kakashi's kunai pouch and removed it from his person, opening it and rummaging through it. Either all of us pass, or no one. So, I'm going to see if you have anything worth threatening in order to pass us. Kakashi's eye widened to the size of a saucer when he saw Naruto fish out his precious book, Icha Icha Paradise. Naruto must have caught his reaction, because his grin widened as he wiggled it at Sasuke. Look, Sasuke, our new teacher likes reading dirty books. How about you set it on fire? Yeah. That sounds like an amazing idea, Naruto, Sasuke said, a cruel smirk on his face. You can't do that, Kakashi exclaimed. Fine, fine, you all pass. Now let me go and give me my book. Hey, Naruto uttered as he put the book back in the kunai pouch and dropped it onto Kakashi's stomach, before putting his hand in a half-ram seal. The wood holding Kakashi loosened and sank back into the earth, allowing Kakashi to sit up. Well, you would have passed anyway, Kakashi said as he stood up, refastening his kunai pouch. This test was designed to see if you could figure out the hidden meaning behind it. Hidden meaning? Hinata mumbled, and Sasuke hummed, crossing his arms. You pitted the three of us against not only you, but each other as well. There was no way we were going to get a bell on our own, so we had to team up. So, self-sacrifice? That's right, Kakashi said with a nod. The hidden answer to this test is teamwork. I wanted to see if you could work together as a team, and I wanted to see if one of you would be willing to sacrifice themselves for the others. While that didn't work out quite as I had planned, you got the gist of it. Duties are done by the team. Of course, individual strength is also important to a ninja, but what's even more important is teamwork. Kakashi looked over his three genin, and a bright smile appeared on his face. Naruto, Sasuke, even if you two are best friends, you still didn't leave Hinata behind in order to get the bells for yourselves. That shows that you have character, compassion, honor. You will be risking your lives in these duties. If a hostage is taken, you will have tough choices to make, and you may not always make the right one. Kakashi sighed and gestured for them to follow him as he walked over to where the poles were, behind which was a large stone with hundreds of names carved into it. Look at this, the numerous names carved on this stone. These are ninjas who are recognized as heroes of the village, Kakashi said, staring softly at the stone. But, they aren't just normal heroes. Why'd I get the feeling you're about to say something depressing? Naruto muttered. These ninjas are all heroes who died on duty, Kakashi explained. This is a memorial. My best friend's name is also carved here. You guys are the first team I've ever passed. Everyone else would just do whatever I told them. They were all just morons, who only thought about themselves, and about doing what I ordered. A ninja must see underneath the underneath. Those who break the rules and codes of the ninja world are called trash, but, you know what? Those who don't take care of their comrades are lower than trash. I want you all to remember that. TCH, Sasuke muttered. Here I thought I had you figured out, then you go say something cool like that. Kakashi smiled brightly and flashed them a thumbs up. That ends the training. All of you pass. Okay, starting tomorrow, Team 7 will begin its duties. Alright, Naruto exclaimed with a wide grin, pumping his fist into the air. My climb to the top starts here. Ah, my precious Tora-chan. I missed you so much. The wife of the fire daimyo, Madame Shijimi, yelled out as she hugged her cat tightly in the mission's office, despite the cat looking like it was choking to death. You had me so worried, my little baby. No wonder it ran away. Naruto muttered, 3 scratches across the bridge of his nose, and many more on his hands. Sasuke had 3 on his cheek, 3 on his neck, and about as many on his hands as Naruto. I would, too. Kind of makes you pity it. Hinata mumbled softly, having no scratches on her. Now, Kakashi's Team 7, the Sandaime said as he was looking over the documents in front of him. Your next duty is babysitting an elder's grandson, shopping in the neighboring village, and help with the potato digging. You can also. I'm gonna stop you right there, Gigi, Naruto said suddenly. Everyone save for his team stared at him in utter shock for daring to interrupt the Hokage. You and I both know that this team is stronger than any genin team you have. We shouldn't be doing this crap. I agree, Sasuke said, crossing his arms. I think this is an incredible waste of valuable resources. After all, besides team training, coming up with strategies and combinations, all they had been doing since graduating was D-ranked missions. You idiots, Iruka barked, sitting next to the Sandaime, who just sighed. You're just rookies. Everyone starts off with the simple duties and work their way up. I don't give a crap. We're not everyone. Naruto barked back. We get these crap missions I wouldn't even force academy students to do. This is not ninja work. Suddenly, Kakashi's fist bopped Naruto on the head, accompanied by the Junin saying, Quiet, you. Naruto-kun, it seems I have to explain to you what these duties are all about, the Sandaime said, puffing on his pipe. Listen, every day, we get all kinds of requests from people, ranging from babysitting to assassination. We rank the missions, and blah, 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 Naruto said, his arms crossed. But you've told us that genin get both D and C ranked missions. I know we're fresh out of the academy, but you know as well as I do that we can handle a C rank. Right, Sasuke, Hinata? I think so. I apologize. Kakashi mumbled, scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. The Sandaime, however, looked thoughtful and hummed while puffing on his pipe. He interlaced his fingers in front of his face and smirked. Very well. If you want it that much, I'll give you a C rank, and we'll see how you do. It's a protection mission of a certain individual, the Sandaime announced, which visibly surprised Kakashi and Hinata, while Naruto and Sasuke smirked. I'll introduce the client now. Hey, will you come in here? The door to the mission office slid open, revealing an old man who, judging by the scars on his hands, must have been a carpenter or something like that. In his hand was a sake bottle, and he took a swig from it as he looked them over. What's this? They're all a bunch of super brats, the man said, a drunken blush on his face. Especially the girl. She looks like she couldn't hurt a fly. Are you really a ninja? Hinata flinched and ducked her head. Seeing that she wasn't about to give a retort, Naruto and Sasuke came to her defense, glaring heatedly at him. Could kill you 5 times over before you could even blink, you old fart, Sasuke said coldly, and Naruto looked at Kakashi. Sensei, can I show him? Killing the person we're supposed to protect would cause us to fail the mission, Kakashi said simply, but Naruto didn't need to show him. They'd gotten their point across, judging by how the old man barely suppressed a flinch. He coughed into his fist. Anyway, I am the super bridge builder, Tazuna. I expect you to provide me super protection until I get back to my country and complete the bridge. And so, later found Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata walked toward the East Konoha gate, packed and ready. Naruto and Sasuke had everything in a scroll each, and Naruto had sealed Hinata's pack into another one, so she didn't have to carry anything. This is AC rank, so the worst we might face is bandits, Sasuke said as they walked. However, I want none of you to let down your guard. Keep your senses sharp for anything out of the norm. Hinata jumped at being addressed directly, and quickly answered with a, why yes? During our journey to Wave Country, I want you to activate your Byakugan at regular intervals and scout the surrounding area. Alright, Naruto. Naruto uttered, raising an eyebrow. I don't want you to go lazy and stop molding chakra. I want you sensing the entire time. Your sensing ability is the best I've ever seen, and it doesn't eat more chakra than it takes for you to regenerate, so you can't complain about that. Don't slack off, keep sensing. Yeah, TCH, you've taken some kind of captain position, or something. Getting a bit ahead of yourself, are you, Sasuke-kun? The Hokage is the leader of the village. I need training, Sasuke said simply, which made Naruto twitch. Yeah, right, the one who's gonna be Hokage is me. Hey, in your dreams, maybe. Why you? I think you both have good chances of becoming Hokage. Hinata mumbled softly, which caused the two genin to stop glaring at each other, instead turning their heads to look at her. Hinata looked a bit startled to be getting so much attention, but gulped and continued. Why you both have such strength, despite your young age, and you both have your unique sets of leadership skills. Sasuke-kun, I think Naruto-kun has just as good a chance to become Hokage, as you. Hinata, finished now, ducked her head, as though expecting Sasuke to react unfavorably to what she had just said. Therefore, he no doubt surprised her when he just gave a soft laugh of amusement. Of course, he said, crossing his arms. He wouldn't be worthy of being my rival if he couldn't keep up with me, after all. But thanks for those kind words, Hinata, Naruto said with a grin, slinging an arm around her shoulders. Seriously, though, we need to do something about this shyness of yours, don't you think? I am not shy. Hinata mumbled, beet red at having Naruto touching her. You're gonna try to convince me that fish can fly, too? Naruto said, still grinning widely. He flashed her a thumbs up. Don't worry, though. Stick with us, and in a couple of weeks, you'll either be a happy-go-lucky jokester like me, or a cool, brooding type like Sasuke. Go with the jokester path, though. One Sasuke is enough. Oi, are you saying I'm annoying? Sasuke asked with a slight glare. Oh ho, not at all, Sasuke-kun. Funny how you would jump to that conclusion, though. Why, you. Hinata giggled softly at their antics, which made Naruto grin wider. They rendezvoused with Kakashi and Tazuna at the gate, and then set off toward Wave Country. As Sasuke had suggested, Naruto started molding chakra and spread out his senses the second they left Konoha, and it was a good thing he did, because he immediately picked up on 2 chakra sources in the trees to their left. He glanced at Sasuke, who caught his eye. They had long since reached the point where they could tell what the other was trying to tell them from simply looking into each other's eyes. Sasuke's eyes narrowed slightly, and he gave a small, barely noticeable nod, before moving over to Hinata. "Hinata, don't use your Byakugan," he whispered so quietly that no even Kakashi would be able to hear them. "We have a tail, and we don't want to spook them." "Understood," Hinata whispered back. Sasuke was shocked to have seen her turn so serious, not at all her usual, shy self. No, he did see that she was the same, but she forced those traits back through sheer force of will. She looked at Tazuna. Tazuna-san? What? You are from Wave Country, right? What about it? Do you have a ninja village?" It was Kakashi who answered, "No, not in Wave Country. Most other countries have them, but Wave Country is a bit too small for it. Hey, don't worry, though. These won't be any ninja combat in a C-rank mission." Sasuke pushed chakra into his eyes as they passed a puddle in the road, then turned to look at Naruto, who nodded back at him as they kept walking, Kakashi bringing up the rear. Suddenly, a ninja with a horned Kiri headband came flying over Kakashi, a bladed chain connected to his clawed gauntlet. He landed between Kakashi and the Genin and Tazuna as the chain wrapped around the Junin, tightening. Behind Kakashi stood another Kiri ninja with an identical gauntlet on his hand, which the chain was connected to. "What?" Kakashi uttered as the two ninja both said, "One down," and pulled the chain. Kakashi was torn to pieces by the chain, making Tazuna go wide-eyed, along with Hinata. Sasuke, Sharingan burning in his eyes, one Tomo in the left and two in the right, looked at her. "Hinata, protect Tazuna," he ordered, while Naruto was already flashing through hand seals. Doryuden, Earth Element, Earth Dragon Projectile. Naruto called out as a dragon head made of earth rose from the ground and turned to one of the Kiri ninja, opening its mouth and spitting high-velocity mud projectiles at him. The ninja jumped, while Sasuke also flashed through seals. "Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu," he called out, spewing a massive ball of flame at the other ninja, who dodged, yanking the chain connecting the two, and in doing so pulling him out of the way of the mud projectiles. The fireball engulfed the chain, instantly melting it and separating the two ninja, who split off, circling around Naruto and Sasuke in order to head for Tazuna, which caused Hinata to stand protectively in front of him. Doryu Heki, Earth Element, Earth-style Wall. Naruto called out after flashing through another chain of seals, slamming his hands down on the ground. One of the ninja, who was coming at Tazuna from behind, suddenly found himself stopped rather abruptly as he ran straight into the earth wall that shot up in front of him. As soon as his head bounced off the wall, Naruto put his hand in a snake seal. Mokuton. Sashiki no Jutsu, Wood Element, Cutting Technique. Naruto called as a wooden blade sprouted from his hand. He spun and flung the blade at the dazed Kiri ninja, piercing him in the shoulder. Gotcha! Naruto proclaimed triumphantly, putting his hand in a half-ram seal and focusing his chakra. Sodatsu, grow. The Kiri ninja's eyes widened when the wood inside his body suddenly sprouted 5 thick spikes that extended to burst out of his body in a shower of blood, piercing many vital organs in the process. Naruto's eyes widened at seeing an actual person be hit by that jutsu. Up until now, all he had practiced on was straw practice dummies. There was so much blood. "Well done, Naruto," came Kakashi's voice, making him look toward Tazuna, to see that Sasuke had moved to stand protectively in front of Hinata, and Kakashi was standing in front of him, holding the other Kiri ninja, who was unconscious, in a headlock. "You guys reacted much better than I would have believed." Kakashi made to turn to Tazuna, but he stopped and looked at Naruto, noticing that the blonde's hands were shaking slightly. Well, it's to be expected. It was his first kill, Kakashi thought, his gaze softening. But to do it at that age, I'll have to talk to him about it later. Kakashi turned to Tazuna and gave him a very serious look. "Tazuna-san." Tazuna visibly flinched. "Why yes? I need to talk to you." Within moments, the Kiri ninja had been tied to a tree, and judging from the fact that he was glaring daggers at Naruto, he was awake. This guy is a Chunin-ranked ninja, one of the demon brothers of Kirigakure no Sato. They are ninjas known to keep fighting no matter what. "How did you read our movements?" the demon brother asked Kakashi. "Not even your genin were taken by surprise." On a sunny day like this, when it hasn't rained in days, a water puddle shouldn't exist, Kakashi said simply. Besides, Naruto is a very accomplished censor. He no doubt detected you from the moment you started following us, and alerted his teammates. Why did you let the brats fight when you knew that? Tazuna asked. If I had wanted to, I could have killed these two instantly, but there was something I needed to find out. Who the target was for these two? What do you mean? Tazuna asked. Meaning, were they after you, or one of us? We haven't heard that there are ninjas after you. Our mission was simply to protect you from thieves or gangs, Kakashi said, narrowing his eye at Tazuna. This has now become at least a B-rank mission. This was supposed to be simple protection until you completed the bridge. Tazuna was quiet, and a sweat drop was visibly rolling down his temple. If it was known that ninja were after you, this mission would have been an expensive B rank. I'm sure you have a reason, but it causes problems when you lie about the mission details. We are now operating outside of our duties. Are we ready for this type of mission? Hinata asked, gulping. I suppose that, at this point, it would be customary for us to abandon the mission, Kakashi said slowly, nodding more to himself than to the others. Sensei. Tazuna spoke up suddenly, catching Kakashi's attention. I have to talk to you. It's about this mission. You're right, this job is most likely outside of your duties. It turns out that a super dangerous man is after my life. Super dangerous man? Kakashi repeated, raising his only visible eyebrow. Who? You've probably at least heard his name before, Tazuna said quietly. The wealthy shipping magnate. A man named Gatu. Huh? Gatu? From that Gatu company? Kakashi asked, his eye widening in surprise. He's said to be one of the world's few extremely wealthy people. Yes. Officially, he runs a large shipping company, Tazuna said with a nod. But, secretly, he sells drugs and other illegal items using ninja and gang members to take over businesses and countries. He's a super nasty man. It was about a year ago when he set his eyes on the Wave country. Through money and violence, he quickly took control of the country's shipping industry. Gatu now has a monopoly on all business traffic in the country. The only thing he has to fear now is the completion of the bridge. And, because you are building the bridge to the mainland, he won't hold a monopoly anymore. Hinata concluded, to which Tazuna nodded. So, those ninja were hired by Gatu? Sasuke asked, and Tazuna nodded. But what I don't understand is, if you knew ninja could be after you, why did you hide that fact when you hired us? Kakashi wanted to know. Tazuna sighed. The Wave country is super poor. Even the daimyo has no money. Of course, we don't have much money, either. Not enough for the expensive B-rank mission. Well, if you quit the mission now, I will definitely be killed. But, don't worry about it. Tazuna said with a bright smile on his face. If I die, my cute, 10-year-old grandson will just cry for a few days. Oh, yeah, and my daughter will live a sad, sad life, hating Konoha ninja forever. But it won't be your fault. Not at all. Kakashi twitched at that, scratching the plate on his Hite 8. Then, he sighed and smiled at Tazuna, saying, well, I guess we have no choice. We will protect you, at least until you get back to your country. Tazuna smiled and thanked them profusely, but they could all see the victorious glint in his eyes. They set off, Kakashi in the front, Hinata and Tazuna in the middle, and Naruto and Sasuke bringing up the rear. Hey, Sasuke said softly, looking down at Naruto's hands. You're shaking. Still a bit shocked, I guess. Naruto mumbled, taking deep breaths. It's not like I've actually killed a man before. It was you or him, Sasuke said simply. Don't beat yourself up about it. Well, I know that, but my body doesn't seem to want to listen. It's not good to be shaking, especially now that we know that enemies are going to attack. Give me a minute, and I'll be fine, Naruto said, a small grin on his face. The group managed to make their way into Wave Country without encountering any more enemies. However, Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata were always on alert, their senses sharp. As Naruto had said, his shaking had stopped, and he was ready for anything. If we're attacked again, it'll probably be a Chunin, since the two Chunin were defeated, Naruto stated as they walked, to which Kakashi nodded. Without a doubt, Naruto perked up, and in a flash he fished out a kunai, hurling it into a bush, making the others jump, save for Kakashi, who must have sensed it as well. Naruto? Sasuke asked, tense. TCH, Kawarimi, huh? Naruto muttered, lowering his hand. His eyes closed, and he stretched out his senses. Everyone, get down. Kakashi ordered suddenly, ducking, just as Naruto detected the presence. Naruto grabbed Hinata and dropped, while Sasuke tackled Tazuna to the ground. A giant sword came flying through the air, passing through the space where the genins' necks would have been, before embedding itself in a tree, at which point a ninja landed on the hilt of the massive Zanbatsu. The man wore striped pants, camo pattern leg and arm warmers, and bandages wrapped around the lower half of his face. Tied sideways to his head was a Kiri Hite 8. Well, Kakashi uttered as they all got to their feet. If it isn't the Kirigakure missing nin, Momochi Zabuza-kun. Naruto? Sasuke uttered, as Naruto narrowed his eyes. Be careful, guys. This guy's got as much chakra as I do. And it's dark. Very dark, and powerful. Naruto muttered. Hinata formed a few hand seals, then called, Byakugan. Veins were visible around her eyes as her dojutsu activated, and her eyes widened when she looked at Zabuza. He's right. This chakra. Sasuke, curious, activated his Sharingan and looked at Zabuza, his eyes widening as well. No. It's only a little, but his chakra stores are larger than yours, Naruto. Ho, Zabuza spoke, turning around so that he was facing them. He lowered himself into a crouch, resting his elbows on his knees as he watched them. Sharingan, Byakugan, and a skilled sensor. Not to mention Sharingan no Kakashi. No wonder why the Demon Brothers lost. Sorry, but the old man is mine. Sharingan? Naruto and Sasuke uttered in unison, amazed, as Kakashi reached for his headband. Surround and protect Tazuna, Kakashi ordered. Do not enter the fight. That's the teamwork here. Zabuza, first. Kakashi slowly lifted his headband to reveal his left eye, which had a scar through it. And in it was a Sharingan. Fight me. Ah, I already get to see the famous Sharingan. I'm honored, Zabuza said, and it was evident that he was smirking behind his bandages. When I was in the Kirigakure Anbu, I kept a handbook. It included information of you. It said, the man who has copied over 1,000 jutsu. Copy Ninja Kakashi. Oi, Sasuke, Naruto muttered. I thought the Sharingan was an Uchiha bloodline. Why the hell does he have it? No idea, Sasuke said, narrowing his own pair of Sharingan eyes. But I intend to find out. Let's end all the talking, Zabuza said as he reached down, grabbing the hilt of the sword he was standing on. I have to kill that old man. Immediately, the three genin moved to stand protectively around Tazuna, ready for anything. But, Kakashi, it seems I have to beat you first. Zabuza kicked off the tree, yanking his sword out as he flew toward the lake in front of them, landing on it. He released a large amount of chakra, causing the water to start swirling around him. Ninpo. Kirigakure no Jutsu, ninja art. Hidden mist technique. Zabuza muttered as a thick mist rolled in, causing him to disappear from view. He'll come after me first, Kakashi announced. Momochi Zabuza. As a ninja of Kiri, he was known as an expert in silent killing. You don't even notice until you're already dead. It's not like I can use the Sharingan perfectly. You guys be careful. Suddenly, the mist got even thicker, and Zabuza's voice was heard coming from all around them. 8 choices. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Which one should I go after? Both Kakashi and Zabuza started flooding the area with killing intent. It was so much that Naruto felt every single muscle in his body tense, and he couldn't help but shiver slightly. He turned his head to look at Hinata, to see that her Byakugan was fading, and her entire body was shaking. She was also visibly sweating in fright. Hinata, Naruto spoke suddenly, catching her attention. He smiled when she looked at him. Stay strong. This is what he wants, so keep your guard up. Sasuke, Kakashi spoke suddenly, and Naruto turned his head to see that Sasuke had been shaking as well. Don't worry. I'll protect you guys with my life, their sensei said as he turned his head to smile at them. I don't let my comrades die. We'll see about that, came Zabuza's voice from between Tazuna and the genin. It's over. Zabuza wasn't fast enough, however. In a flash, Sasuke's Chikudo had been unsheathed, and he spun faster than Naruto had ever seen him move. The blade flashed, and Zabuza's head was suddenly separated from his body, his eyes wide. The body and the head, however, exploded in a shower of water, and Naruto's eyes widened when he picked up on Zabuza's chakra. "Sensei, behind you," he called out, but too late, as Zabuza's massive sword had already cut Kakashi in half. Only for Kakashi's body to disperse into water as well, another Kakashi appearing behind Zabuza with a kunai at his neck. "Don't move," Kakashi ordered. "It's over." TCH, Naruto thought, gritting his teeth. "This damn mist is covered in his chakra. I can hardly even sense Kakashi through it," he thought, then looked at Hinata. "Oi, Hinata, can you see anything?" "No, Naruto-kun. There's too much chakra in the air." "Same here," Sasuke muttered. Then, his eyes widened when Zabuza spoke to Kakashi. "Sensei, behind you." Kakashi's eyes widened when yet another Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi, the Zabuza in front of him dissolving into water. He ducked under a sword swing, but Zabuza didn't even pause when his sword dug into the ground. Instead, he spun, switching his grip, and booted Kakashi in the face, sending him flying through the air. Zabuza immediately pulled his sword out of the ground and ran off, jumping toward the spot where Kakashi splashed into the water. As Kakashi surfaced, Zabuza landed behind him and flashed through hand seals. "Suiro no Jutsu, water prison technique," he announced as the water shot up to envelop Kakashi in a ball, Zabuza holding his hand in it to keep it going. "You tried to escape to the water. Big mistake. Now I have you in an inescapable prison," Zabuza said, chuckling. "It's tougher if you can't move, you know? Now, Kakashi, we can finish things later. First, I'll take care of them," he said as he put his hand in a half-ram seal. Out of the water rose a Mizu Bunshin, who walked onto the shore, chuckling softly. "Wearing those Hite-8 and acting like ninja," the clone said, smirking behind his bandages. "A real ninja is someone who has survived numerous brushes with death. Only when you're good enough to be listed in my handbook can you start calling yourself ninja. You are not ninja, just brats. Take Tazuna-san and run." Kakashi yelled suddenly. "You have no chance of beating him. As long as he's keeping me trapped in this prison, he can't move. The Mizu Bunshin can't go very far from his real body. Just run away now." Naruto slowly turned his head to look at Sasuke, who smirked and nodded. Then he looked to Hinata, who gulped, but steeled herself nonetheless, nodding as well. "Run away? TCH, Kakashi-sensei, you underestimate us," Naruto said, a grin spreading on his face. "A Mizu Bunshin only possesses 1/10 of the original's power. Do you think it's that weak? Besides, the success of this fight depends on you," Sasuke said. "If we run away now, Zabuza will just kill you, then pick us off one by one at his leisure. Besides, those who abandon their comrades are even worse than trash, right?" "Tazuna-san," Naruto said, ignoring Kakashi's wide-eyed look, instead looking to the old man, who sighed. "Well, I planted this seed myself. I'm not going to say that I desire to live so much that I'd stop you. I'm sorry, guys. Fight as much as you want." Zabuza's clone, however, just started laughing, grinning slightly. "You guys will never grow up. Going to keep playing ninja, When I was your age, these hands were already dyed red with blood." "So?" Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. "What, that makes you a ninja? That just makes you a psychopathic killer, you eyebrowless freak," he exclaimed, raising his hand to point at Zabuza. "Don't talk as if you know us. Talking trash is for when the battle is over." Sasuke, Combo 27. "Hey, right," Sasuke said as they both started flashing through hand seals. Naruto ended in a snake seal, and a wooden pole shot out of the ground in front of Sasuke, heading past the Zabuza clone and then curving around him, intending on wrapping around him. The clone, despite the shock at seeing a Mokuton jutsu used, leapt into the air to avoid it, which was a big mistake, as the wood shot upward and wrapped around him, trapping him, just as Sasuke finished his hand seals. Naruto's Sasuke Kanbi Jutsu. Naruto Sasuke combo technique smiley face, they both announced, Naruto grinning and Sasuke blowing a stream of flame at the wood, which shot up along it to encase the entire wooden pole and the Zabuza clone in flames, yakiniku, grilled meat. The flames burned so hot that when the clone died, the water didn't drop to the ground, instead turning into steam and rising into the air. "Ho," the real Zabuza uttered in amusement. "Mokuton Ninjutsu, That was unexpected. However, He put his hand in another half-ram seal, and 10 more Mizu Bunshin rose from the water, walking onto the shore. Sasuke, you can do it, right? Naruto asked his friend, who immediately knew what he was referring to and nodded, unsheathing his Chikuto again. Good, I'll clear a path. Go. Sasuke shot off toward the clones, who all raised their swords and made to attack. Wood spikes shooting from the ground forced them to dodge, however, allowing Sasuke to pass through unscathed. He shot toward the real Zabuza, cocking his arm back, then swung. Zabuza, however, ducked under the swing, but Sasuke wasn't done, spinning and throwing a kunai at Zabuza's head, which forced him to dodge out of the way, pulling his hand out of the water prison in the process. The clones, seeing this, made to go after Sasuke, but that provided enough of a distraction for Naruto to focus his chakra into the ground and cause more wooden spikes to shoot out of it, impaling and destroying the clones. You brat! Zabuza yelled at Sasuke, reaching up to grab the sword on his back, only for Kakashi's sandal to plant itself into his face, knocking him back. Your opponent is me, Kakashi said, his Sharingan narrowed dangerously. Zabuza bounced on the water, landing in a crouch and rising to a stand. Hey, I got distracted and released the jutsu. Wrong, Kakashi said. You were forced to release it, he corrected, which made Zabuza twitch. Naruto, Sasuke, good job. Don't worry, though. I'll take it from here. Zabuza looked like he was gritting his teeth as Sasuke nodded and sheathed his Chikuto, running past Kakashi and back to Naruto, Hinata, and Tazuna, whereupon he gave Naruto a high five. I'll tell you now, I don't fall for the same jutsu twice, Kakashi said, staring calmly at Zabuza. What will you do now? TCH. Zabuza uttered and leapt back, before starting a long chain of seals, which were perfectly mimicked by Kakashi. Suiden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. Water element. Water dragon projectile technique. The both called out in perfect unison as 2 dragons formed out of the water between them and charged at each other, crashing into each other and exploding. That many seals, and he copied them flawlessly, Naruto muttered, bracing himself as the water washed up onto the shore and crashed into them. He turned to look at Sasuke. Can you do that? Not at this stage of the Sharingan, no, Sasuke said, shaking his head as he saw the 2 Junin clash right underneath where the 2 water dragons had crashed into each other, Kakashi blocking Zabuza's sword with a kunai. Strange, Zabuza thought, narrowing his eyes as he stared into the Sharingan. What's going on? He pushed off and jumped back, Kakashi mimicking his actions perfectly, as he tried circling around him, then stopped and raised his hands to perform the Kirigakure jutsu. My movements, Zabuza thought as he lowered one of his hands, Kakashi doing the same. He's completely reading them, Kakashi finished his line of thought, making his eyes widen. What, did he read my mind? Zabuza thought, feeling sweat breaking out on his forehead, placing his hands in a seal. Damn, that freaky eye is pissing me off, right? Zabuza twitched. Hey, all you're doing is copying me. You can't beat me, you monkey bastard. Both Kakashi and Zabuza exclaimed at once, and that really made Zabuza's eyes widen. Damn you, I'll make it so you can never open that mouth again. Zabuza growled out, flashing through hand seals. He stopped, however, amazed, as he saw himself form behind Kakashi. That's me? That's not possible. Is this one of his genjutsu? Kakashi, to his surprise, finished the chain of seals Zabuza had been doing, and called out, Suiden. Daibakufu no Jutsu, water element, grand waterfall technique. As his Sharingan started spinning, and the water in front of him came to life and rose up, rushing at Zabuza. What? Impossible. Zabuza roared as the water smashed into him, sending him through a large amount of trees with the force of it. I'm the one doing the jutsu. Yet I can't keep up, he thought in a panic, right before getting washed into a tree, after which his arms and legs were pierced by kunai. It's over, came Kakashi's voice from above, making him look up to see Kakashi crouching on a tree branch. How? Can you see the future? Zabuza asked, still in shock. Yeah, your future is death, Kakashi proclaimed, raising a kunai. Before he could use it, however, 2 senbon needles came flying out of nowhere and pierced Zabuza's neck. Zabuza's eyes were wide as he collapsed to the ground, and everyone looked up to another tree, to see a kid around the genin's age, wearing a mask that looked almost like an Anbu mask, which had the Kiri markings on the forehead. Hee. You're right. He's dead, the boy spoke in a very feminine voice, which matched his feminine body. Who's the gender-confused mask boy? Naruto asked loudly, displaying his usual tact as Kakashi jumped down to Zabuza's body, checking his pulse. Thank you very much, the masked ninja said, bowing. I have been searching for the opportunity to kill Zabuza for a long time. That mask, Kakashi said, looking up at him. You're a Kiri Hunter Nen. Hunter Nen? Hinata repeated in confusion, looking to her teammates for explanations. Hunter Nen are a special division of Anbu, Sasuke explained. Their duty is to hunt down and kill missing Nen. TCH, to get a rank like that at that age. There are some great ninja out there, Naruto asked, a grin on his face. It'd be nice to fight him. The Hunter Nen jumped down and slung Zabuza's arm over his shoulder, picking him up. Your battle is now over, and I must dispose of this body, since it seems to be a body with many secrets, he said, putting his hand in a half-ram seal. Farewell. The wind started kicking up around him so fast that it was howling, and then, in the blink of an eye, he and Zabuza's corpse were gone. Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief, pulling down his headband to cover his Sharingan, and Sasuke and Hinata deactivated their own eyes. Now we have to get Tazuna-san home, Kakashi announced to his genin. Let's go. Ha ha ha. Super thanks, guys. Tazuna said brightly. Come over to my house and relax for a while. Just as he said that, Kakashi suddenly froze and tipped forward, unable to move. Ah, I was wondering when that would happen, Naruto said, unsurprised as he walked up to Kakashi, crouching down in front of him. Your chakra stores are lower than mine, and you're using a transplanted eye. That should drain you pretty quickly, Sasuke, gimme a hand here. Why, too weak to carry him yourself? Shut your face hole and give me a hand. Hey, Sasuke, Naruto said as he stood over Kakashi, who was laying in a futon in Tazuna's house. Should I be worried that you'll end up like that if you use the Sharingan for an extended period of time? I know what you're trying to do, Sasuke said, his arms crossed as he took off his sandals. And it's not going to work. Oh, then what am I trying to do? You're trying to rile me up. You have already showed that you know that the only reason the Sharingan drained Sensei like that was because his body and chakra system are not built for the Sharingan, so you already know you don't have to worry about something like that, idiot. Huh? Naruto said, blinking as he cupped his ear. Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over this uncopyable Mokuton ninjutsu I have. Just as Sasuke knew how to annoy Naruto, by calling him stupid, Naruto knew perfectly well how to annoy Sasuke, by mentioning the fact that he'd be unable to copy Naruto's bloodline jutsu. Therefore, it came as no surprise to those who knew them that they suddenly got involved in a glaring match in which one could almost see the sparks flying between them as they tried to mutilate each other with nothing but their eyes. By the way, Kakashi-sensei. Who was that masked ninja? Hinata asked, trying to take Naruto and Sasuke's attention away from each other, and onto the matter at hand. That's the mask worn by the Kirigakure Special Hunter Nin Squad, Kakashi said, completely unable to move. They are also known as body erasers. Their duty is to completely dispose of the body without a trace. A ninja's body has within it secrets of the village's ninjutsu. Information on different chakra types, herbs, and other things that will reveal information about the village. For example, if I died, the secrets of the Sharingan could be revealed. If you're not careful, there's the danger that the enemy will steal your jutsu. A ninja's body can reveal important information. So, by killing and disposing of the missing nin who have abandoned their village, the hunter nin protect the information from getting out. They are the specialists who guard their village's secrets. No sound, no smell. That is a ninja's end. Shitty way to end, Naruto commented, giving a low whistle. I need to get some sleep, Kakashi announced suddenly. The longer I rest, the quicker I'll be back to full health. Alright, I'll keep my senses up, Naruto said, molding chakra. Sasuke sighed as he lay back on the floor, hands behind his head, muttering, something tells me this following week will be boring. Naruto looked around, and saw that Hinata had moved away from Kakashi, sitting and facing the wall. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto walked over and plopped down next to her, staring at her curiously. Hey, you alright? Hinata jumped and snapped her head toward Naruto, her eyes wide. She had no doubt been so wrapped up in her own thoughts that she hadn't even noticed him. Why yes, I'm fine, Hinata mumbled, turning her head to look down at the floor. A blind man could see that something is bothering you, Naruto said. Now, we're teammates. We're supposed to rely on each other. What's wrong? Hinata was quiet for a moment, probably contemplating whether to tell Naruto or not. Then, she sighed and said, I'm not sure if I belong on this team. And what brought this on? Naruto asked, tilting his head to the side. I'm not very strong, Naruto-kun. I'm weak. And you, Sasuke-kun, and Kakashi-sensei. You're all so strong, and I'm not. Naruto hummed as he stared at Hinata, who looked distraught. He waited for a few seconds, then asked, and? This caused Hinata to blink in confusion. What? And so what? Naruto said, shrugging. Do you think Sasuke and I were born this strong? No way. Training is the key. If you feel you're weak, then get stronger, that's all there is to it. But it's not that simple, Naruto-kun. You're making it sound so easy. It's only hard if you make it hard, Naruto said simply as he got to his feet. Tell you what, come with Sasuke and me when we go training tomorrow. We'll get you strong. For some reason, Hinata couldn't help but feel a sense of dread upon hearing that. Something about the glint in Naruto's eye had been incredibly dangerous. Suddenly, Kakashi, who had just fallen asleep, shot up in his futon, covering his face with his hand as he appeared deep in thought. What's wrong, sensei? Naruto asked as he sat down next to Sasuke, who was looking at their sensei curiously as well. Huh? Kakashi uttered as he looked up at his genin. Oh, well, body erasing teams usually dispose of the body of the person they killed right there. But that hunter nin took the body away. Naruto muttered, his eyes narrowing as he made the connection. Yeah, if he needed proof of his work, he could have just taken the head, Kakashi said, stroking his chin. And the weapon that he used to kill Zabuza. Sasuke's eyes widened. No way. Yeah, exactly, Kakashi said, nodding. What are you guys talking about? Tazuna asked curiously. Most likely. Zabuza is still alive, Kakashi announced, making Tazuna and Hinata go wide-eyed. Those Senbon, Sasuke said, scratching his head in thought. It's possible that he just put Zabuza in a momentary state of death. Indeed. First, he took the body of the much heavier Zabuza with him. Second, he used a weapon that has a low probability of killing, Kakashi said with a sigh of resignation. These 2 points indicate that his motive was not to kill Zabuza, but to save him. We can't ignore that possibility. Aren't you thinking too much? Tazuna asked nervously. Hunter nin are supposed to kill missing nin. If he was even a hunter nin at all, Naruto muttered, crossing his arms. But whether it's true or not, the possibility is there, so it's better to be safe than sorry. Exactly. So, we will prepare before it's too late. Plus, whether Zabuza is dead or alive, there are no assurances that Gato hasn't hired an even stronger ninja. Therefore, Naruto, Sasuke. The two friends straightened up upon being addressed by Kakashi and gave him their full attention. You two are very strong, and you're getting stronger every day. Hinata has massive amounts of untapped potential. Can I trust you two to release it while I'm recovering? Hey, I'm way ahead of you, sensei. Naruto said with a grin, flashing him a thumbs up. Hee, this is getting fun. That's not fun, came a new voice as a kid, looking no older than 8, entered the house. Oh, Inari. Tazuna exclaimed happily. Where were you? Welcome back, Grandpa, the boy, Inari, said as he walked up to Tazuna, giving him a hug. Inari, Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, said, say hello to these people. They are ninja who protected Grandpa. Inari turned his head to look at Kakashi and his genin for a good long while. Then, he turned to his mother and pointed at the ninja. Mom, they are going to die. What was that? Naruto barked. There's no way you can win against Gato, Inari said adamantly. Words like that should be saved for after the fighting is done, Sasuke said, glaring lightly at Inari. Otherwise, you'll look like a fool afterward. Listen, Sasuke and I can't lose to a guy like Gato, Naruto said, slinging his arm around Sasuke's shoulder. We're gonna be heroes one day. We're not gonna go down fighting a chump like him. Hey, let go, you fool. What are you, stupid? Inari asked, staring coldly at Naruto. There's no such thing as a hero. Naruto froze for a second, his eyes going cold. Then, he muttered, Sasuke, hold me back. As ordered, Sasuke grabbed Naruto from behind, just as the blonde made to charge at Inari. Why, you little. If you don't want to die, you should leave. Inari muttered, turning around and walking off. Where are you going, Inari? Tazuna asked. To look at the ocean from my room. With that, Inari left, and Naruto glared at the closed door for a good 5 minutes before he turned away. Alright, Naruto exclaimed the following day as he stood in a clearing in the woods near Tazuna's house with Sasuke and Hinata. I hope you're rested, because you're going to need the energy, Hinata. First of all, we're going to improve your speed and power. How are we going to do that? Hinata asked nervously as Naruto walked up to her. First, lose the jacket, he said, reaching out and unzipping the now red-faced Hinata's jacket and pulling it off her, revealing her mesh shirt and short tank top underneath, along with her already developing chest. It'll only get in the way. You need mobility. Now, excuse me. Naruto turned away, and Sasuke did the same, both of them with small blushes on their faces. If one could read minds, they would have heard them both think, she should never have been allowed to cover those up, in perfect unison. Then, Naruto cleared his throat and turned back to Hinata, who was still blushing furiously. Alright, we're going to help you progress using the same method we used to get stronger and faster, he said, skillfully avoiding staring at her chest as he reached into his right kunai pouch, taking out 2 black bracelets, identical to the ones he wore on his own wrists. Put these on, he said, handing them to Hinata, who did as ordered. Those are chakra weights. Currently, they weigh a pound each. The more chakra you pour into them, the heavier they become. You want them to be heavy enough to make you sluggish, but not heavy enough to render you unable to move. Once you have added the desired weight, we will be doing some sparring. This will help you develop muscles that won't inhibit you in your fighting style. Your musculature, as it grows stronger, will adapt to your movements. Understood? Why yes, Naruto-kun. Be careful when you add chakra to the bracelets. Too much, and you'll be unable to move, and… Naruto grinned, looking a bit like a sadistic teacher, taking pleasure in his student's plight. Neither Sasuke nor I feel like removing any weight from them. Hinata eeped at that, but nonetheless channeled chakra into her bracelets, being extremely careful by channeling a little at a time, to make sure they didn't get too heavy. Once she reached a weight she felt satisfied with, she nodded to Naruto, whose eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Throw a punch, he ordered, and Hinata did so. He shook his head. Too light. You need to struggle to maintain the same speed and mobility you have without the weights. Increase it. Why yes, Naruto-kun. Hinata channeled more chakra into the bracelets and deemed herself ready. Once more she was ordered to throw a punch, and once more Naruto ordered her to increase the weights. This time, Naruto seemed satisfied, and Hinata stood there, feeling like her arms were going to get pulled out of their sockets from the weight. Alright, Naruto said, clapping his hands together. It's time for you to spar with Sasuke, he announced, which made Hinata's eyes widen. Sasuke is a much more versatile taijutsu fighter. I'm stronger than him, but I'm more of a brawler. My style is very unorthodox for ninja, so fighting me will probably just prepare you against fighting only me. Sasuke, however, has a style more closely resembling a traditional ninja style. So, you're fighting him. I won't go easy on you, though, Sasuke said, walking up to stand next to Naruto, smirking. If I did, that would be insulting. You want to get stronger, right? Why yes. Alright, then get ready, Naruto said as he moved to stand between them. This is a taijutsu only spar. That means no chakra usage whatsoever. Although, you are allowed to use your dojutsu, and the juken is allowed. Sasuke, he said and held out his hand. Sasuke nodded and removed his chikuto, tossing it to Naruto, who raised it into the air. Alright, are you both ready? Then, fight. Ouch. Sasuke muttered as he held his side, while Naruto was treating a few bruises on Hinata's arms. She had been very good at dodging Sasuke's strikes aimed at her body, but she wasn't capable of dodging them entirely, and ended up getting hit on the arms. She had surprisingly managed to get in a few strikes as well, however, and one of them hurt like hell. She had hit him with a juken strike right between his ribs, so she didn't just hit his chakra point, but also hurt him physically. I'm weak, she says, Naruto muttered, shaking his head in amusement. Hinata, do you know how many of the graduated genin would have been able to land a hit on Sasuke, except for me? No. Hinata mumbled, her head bowed. She was too kind, in Naruto's opinion. She had already apologized profusely for hurting Sasuke several times, even though he had just waved her off every time, and still looked apologetic. "No one," Naruto informed her with a grin. "You're strong, Hinata, but you can get stronger. Just keep training with us, and we'll get you up to Junin level in no time." I hope so. TCH. That's not a Junin attitude. Hell, it's not even a ninja attitude, Sasuke muttered, glancing at Hinata out of the corner of his eye, as it hurt too much to turn his body. "Use more force when you speak. Naruto, show her." "Right," Naruto said, grinning at Hinata. "What you do is just gather energy in your chest, take a deep breath, and then let it out," he instructed, pumping his fist. "Yes, I'm certain I will. Say something like that." That, I couldn't," Hinata mumbled, poking her fingertips together. "Such a thing. True, that might be a bit too advanced for you at this stage." "Alright, then, how about a yes? Say it with guts. What my moronic friend is trying to say is that you should say it with as much energy as you can muster." "A non-stuttering yes will do, however," Sasuke explained. Naruto nodded in confirmation. Then, he paused for a few seconds, followed by him gritting his teeth and snapping his head in Sasuke's direction to give him a murderous glare. "Hey, Sasuke, what's with the moronic friend? Want me to beat the crap out of ya?" "Hey, it only took 4 seconds to register this time. You're getting faster," Sasuke said with a smirk. The smirk vanished, however, when Naruto ran up to him and kicked him where Hinata had hit him with the Jukin strike. That was the scene Kakashi showed up to. Naruto was gritting his teeth and glaring down at Sasuke, who was rolling on the ground, clutching his side, while Hinata sat to the side, giggling at their antics. Kakashi leaned against his crutches, tilting his head to the side in confusion. "Is this what counts as a training session for you guys?" he asked, catching the attention of his genin. "Oh, sensei," Naruto said, his anger fading completely, a grin plastered on his face. "We've been gauging Hinata's strength, and we're taking a break right now." "Ah, I see. You really look like you're relaxing," Kakashi muttered, sweat dropping. "Anyway, I remembered something I was going to ask you. Have any of you learned a chakra exercise called tree climbing?" It's a basic chakra exercise. In the Hyuga clan, chakra control is essential, so we learn it at an early age." Hinata mumbled, to which Kakashi nodded, then looked to the 2 males of the team. "Naruto, Sasuke? The Gigi taught us a couple of years ago," Naruto said, nodding, which made Kakashi's eyes widen. "You got Hokage-sama to take time out of his busy schedule to teach it to you?" he asked in surprise, but Sasuke, who had recovered by now, gave a scoff of amusement. "More like blackmailed him," he said, smirking. Naruto got bored and wanted to learn something new. Since the Hokage is the greatest ninja in the village, Naruto figured he must know something we could learn, so he threatened that if he didn't teach us, Naruto would go ballistic in his office and throw all his paperwork out the window. Kakashi's sweat dropped again when he saw Naruto's proudly grinning face. Blackmailing the Hokage by threatening to force him to either go out and collect all his paperwork, or redo it. Threatening my Icha paradise. That Naruto is good at finding people's weaknesses and exploiting them. Shaking his head, Kakashi cleared his throat. "Anyway, Tazuna-san is going to start working on the bridge again tomorrow, and I need one of you to protect him while I'm recovering." "I can do it," Sasuke volunteered. "That way, Naruto can focus on Hinata's training. And the day after that, Naruto can protect him while I take over the training." "Sounds like a plan," Kakashi said with an approving nod. "If something happens, I want you to shoot up a flare, so everyone else can come help." "I am so tired," Hinata mumbled near the end of the week. She had been through non-stop training even since they started. When Naruto and Sasuke said they were going to work her to the bone, they weren't exactly exaggerating. Currently, everyone was at the dinner table, eating. "I'm so sore, I can hardly even keep my food down." "Oh, you're gonna puke?" Sasuke asked, a hint of interest in his voice. "I did that once, too. No shame in it. And no, I'm fine. You really need to eat, though. You need fat to convert to muscle mass, after all." "Where's Naruto?" Kakashi asked, blinking. His body was already much better, and he could move around without a problem. In fact, he was good as new now. Usually, he'd be the first to the dinner table. He's still out training. Damn machine. He can keep going for days. Sasuke muttered. In fact, he has been going for days, ever since that Kaiza story. When Sasuke spoke that name, Inari, who was sitting across from Sasuke, tensed up, and looked ready to leave the table. Since Sasuke didn't mention it again, however, he stayed, but kept his head down. But even Naruto has a limit, Kakashi said slowly. It would be bad if he used up too much chakra. Wouldn't surprise me if he had. The useless moron is probably dead by now, Sasuke said, shrugging. He didn't mean it, however. He knew Naruto would never die from chakra exhaustion. It was not a spectacular enough way to die for him. I wanted to ask you this earlier, but... Tazuna muttered, giving Kakashi a confused look. Why are you still here, even when I lied to you about this mission? To abandon your duty is not courageous. Below the courageous, there is nothing, Kakashi said simply. Those were the previous Hokage's words. That is the way of the shinobi. Shinobi don't move because of money alone. Just then, the door opened, and Naruto, sweaty, dirty, and panting, came in, a tired grin on his face. You've worn yourself out again, moron, Sasuke said, giving Naruto a glance. You look like you can barely stand, let alone move. I think I'm operating more on willpower than anything else right now. Naruto muttered, slouching up to the table and taking a seat. Without another word, his head dropped, impacting hard with the table, which made everyone jump. I'd rather just go to sleep right now. But first, some grub. Hee hee, I'm also super worn out from today's bridge work, Tazuna said, smiling brightly. At any rate, the bridge is almost complete. Naruto-kun, father, don't overdo it, okay? Tsunami said in stern concern, but the two just kept smiling. They sat in silence for a while, and Naruto noticed Inari staring at him intently, tears welling up in his eyes. Then, Inari snapped. Why do you guys bother so hard? No matter how hard you train, you're still no match for Gatu's men. No matter what glorious claims you make, or how hard you work, when facing the strong, the weak will only end up getting killed. The grin faded from Naruto's face, and the blonde gave Inari a long, almost bored stare. Whatever. I'm not like you. I'd hate to be like you. You don't know anything about this country, yet you're being so nosy. Inari yelled. What the hell do you know about me? I'm different from you. You're always clowning around and acting so cheerful. You don't know how hard life can be. Now, the bored look faded, and Naruto's eyes, for the first time in years, turned an icy blue that no one had ever seen before. Ah, so I should be like you, then? Cry and act like the star of some great tragedy? He asked coldly. Then, it was as though a fire had ignited in his eyes as he gave Inari one of his fiercest glares, one that he didn't even use on Sasuke. Then keep crying forever, you little sissy. The tears started flowing from Inari's eyes again, and he sat there, trembling, as Naruto stood up and made to walk away, only for his knees to give out. Sasuke was out of his seat in an instant, catching Naruto before his knees even hit the floor, which made Naruto laugh. Aha, sorry, Sasuke. Guess I did overdo it. TCH. You idiot, get some rest. You're probably going to need it tomorrow, Sasuke said as he helped Naruto get to the guest room. Naruto, still tired and sore, got out of his futon and got dressed, his eyes half-lidded as he went through his morning stretches. He gave a very loud yawn as he left the guest room and made his way toward the kitchen, only to stop outside the living room and turn to look inside it. Tsunami and Inari were on the floor, Inari helping his mother with her knitting. Ah, this is a surprise, Naruto said tiredly. You're not usually up this early. Early, Naruto-kun? Tsunami said, blinking. It's noon. Naruto blinked as well as he stared at Tsunami, before looking out the window to see that, indeed, the sun was shining brightly. His eyes widened. Ah, I overslept, he exclaimed, clutching his head. I've never overslept in my life. Sensei said you should rest. No time for rest. I need to be out there. Naruto exclaimed, rushing off. I'm off. Naruto ran out of the house and into the woods, taking a shortcut to the bridge. As he jumped from branch to branch in the trees, however, he stopped suddenly and looked down toward the road to his right. There was a boar next to the road, and it was cut up bad. He looked around, and saw several cuts in the trees, leading toward Tazuna's house. Tazuna-san said that Gadu has 2 bodyguards who specialize in Iijutsu. Naruto thought, narrowing his eyes. TCH, they're not very subtle, are they? Meanwhile, Inari was in his house, trembling. 2 men had just come in and kidnapped his mother, and he had been powerless to do anything. I don't want to die. I'm afraid, he thought, crying to himself. I'm sorry, Mom. You little sissy. Naruto's voice echoed in his head suddenly, making his eyes widen. Cry and act like the star of some great tragedy? He's probably sick and tired of crying, came Kakashi's voice next. Then keep crying forever, you little sissy. He knows what it means to be truly strong, just like your dad. As Inari slowly lowered his hands from his face to look at them, the voice of his dead father, Kaiza, echoed in his head. If it's truly previous, even if you lose your life, you must protect it with these two arms. They're all so incredible, so cool, so strong, Inari thought, wiping his eyes. Then, he stood up, a look of determination on his face, no longer crying. Will I also be able to become strong, Dad? With that, he ran out of the house, where he saw the two swordsmen leading his mother away. Wait, he yelled angrily, which made the three stop and turn to him. Inari. Tsunami yelled in distress. It's that kid, the eye-patched swordsman said. Get away from my mom. Inari cried and charged at the two swordsmen, who scoffed and thumbed their swords out of their sheaths. Then, they dashed forward, slicing Inari into 3 pieces. Their eyes widened, however, when instead of Inari, they had cut a wooden doll who looked exactly like him. Kawarimi no jutsu? One of the swordsmen asked, his eyes wide as he looked toward Tsunami, to see that Naruto had arrived, holding Inari in his arms. Sorry I'm late, Naruto announced, setting Inari down next to Tsunami, grinning. But, you know, heroes usually show up at the last second, so it's alright. Naruto. Inari muttered, staring at Naruto in shock, which got him a grin from the blonde ninja. Great job, Inari. Thanks to you distracting them, I was able to save your mom. Well, if it isn't one of the loser ninja Tazuna hired, the eye-patched swordsman said, scoffing. The two charged at Naruto, which made Inari's eyes widen. Are you going to be alright? The boy asked in concern, while Naruto just looked calm as ever. He slowly dragged his foot against the wooden planks beneath him, a smirk on his face as he tapped his foot against it. Suddenly, 2 blunt wooden poles grew out of the wood at great speed, smashing straight into the swordsmen's chins, snapping their heads back with the force. They stumbled back, straight into 2 more Naruto, who raised their hands. Their raised hands contorted and transformed into wooden fists twice their normal size. The swordsmen only had the time to give quick eeps, before the fists smashed into their faces, knocking them out cold. Once the swordsmen were tied up and left hanging upside down from a tree, Naruto casually brushed non-existent dust off his hands and gave a grin. Piece of cake. How did you know those swordsmen were coming here? Inari asked. Oh, there was a cut-up boar in the forest, and a lot of cuts on the trees leading here. I got a bad feeling, so I turned back. Lucky I did, Naruto said as the grin faded, to be replaced by a soft smile. Ah, sorry, Inari, about yesterday. I called you a sissy, but you're obviously not one, he said and put his hand on Inari's head, the grin returning once more. You're strong. Inari's eyes widened, and tears started welling up in his eyes. Then, with a muttered, damn it, he ducked his head and wiped his eyes. I decided I wasn't going to cry anymore. You're going to make fun of me and call me a crybaby. TCH, I'd never stoop to such a low-class insult. Tear-shedding baby wimp. Maybe, Naruto said, shrugging. Then he grinned at Inari again. But that doesn't apply here. It's okay to cry when you're happy, Inari. That did it. Inari started crying again as Naruto turned away, sighing. Ah well, if they attacked here, then the bridge is probably in danger. Sasuke can handle things, but it'd be bad if he hogged the spotlight. It might get to his head. I can count on you here, right? Yup, Inari said immediately, once more wiping his eyes. Alright, Naruto is blasting off. With that, Naruto took off. Before the encounter Naruto had with the swordsman, Sasuke, Hinata, Kakashi, and Tazuna had just made it to the end of the bridge, which was almost at the mainland, to find that the 5 remaining workers were on the ground, bleeding. What's this? Tazuna exclaimed, rushing up to one of them, the only one who seemed to be awake. What happened? A monster. The worker muttered, gritting his teeth in pain, just as a thick mist rolled in. Here they come, Kakashi said as Tazuna backed up, and the ninja took up a defensive formation around him. Kakashi-sensei. This is Zabuza's Kirigakure no Jutsu. Hinata mumbled, activating her Byakugan. Long time no see, Kakashi, came Zabuza's voice through the mist. I see you're still with those brats. He's shaking again, poor kid. He was referring to Sasuke, who was shivering as a large group of Zabuza clones appeared around them. Sasuke gave a small grin as his Sharingan activated. I'm just so damn excited to see you again, Sasuke said, which made Kakashi smile. Do it, Sasuke. Sasuke gripped his Chikuto and pulled it out of his sheath, moving so fast that he had only just barely unsheathed the sword when he reached the first Zabuza clone. Before the water from the first clone had even splashed to the ground, Sasuke reappeared in his original spot, all of the clones exploding as he slowly sheathed his Chikuto. I don't know if anyone's ever told you, Zabuza, but you're a real drip, Sasuke joked, but then froze and palmed his face. Damn it, I've been hanging around Naruto too much. He saw through the water clones, came Zabuza's voice as the mist cleared slightly to show Zabuza and that fake hunter Nin standing on the bridge. It looks like a rival has appeared. Haku? Indeed it does, the hunter Nin, Haku, said with a nod. It seems our suspicion was right on the mark, Kakashi commented, appearing to be the epitome of calmness, as always. That masked one. He's obviously Zabuza's comrade, standing right next to him and all. I'll fight him, Sasuke said, narrowing his eyes. Trickiness with that stupid act. I hate bastards like that the third most. Third? Kakashi asked, blinking. Second is Naruto when he's cranky. First is you when you're late. That caused Kakashi to sweat drop. An impressive young man, Haku spoke, ignoring their conversation. Even though the water clones only have 1/10 of the original strength. Still very impressive. But we have gained the first advantage, Zabuza said. Go. Yes. Haku started spinning incredibly fast and shot forward. Sasuke tensed and did the same, unsheathing his Chikuto again. The two clashed halfway, Sasuke smirking. Oh, nice speed. However, it's nothing my Sharingan cannot see, the Uchiha said. In all honesty, Haku was rather slow, compared to Naruto's Mokuton ninjutsu, which moved at incredible speed. Hinata, it's not the most glamorous assignment in a fight, but stay in front of Tazuna and protect him, Kakashi said. We'll let Sasuke handle the kid. Yes, sensei, Hinata said, nodding with determination. Ho, it seems our training has paid off, Sasuke said, demonstrating how Haku's strength was nowhere near his own by turning his head to look at Hinata, not even appearing bothered by the Senbon-wielding ninja pushing against his Chikuto. There wasn't even a tremble in your voice just now. Good work, Hinata, he praised, before turning back to Haku, who raised his hand in a half-ram seal. I don't want to have to kill you, but you won't stand down, will you? Haku asked, which made Sasuke scoff. Don't be foolish. I see. But you won't be able to keep up with my speed the next time. Plus, I've already gained 2 advantages. 2 advantages? Sasuke repeated. The first is the water on the ground. And the second is that I have occupied one of your arms. You will now only be able to run from my attacks. Sasuke's eyes widened when Haku started forming seals with only one hand, ending in a half-ram seal again. The water around them suddenly rose into the air and formed needles, which all flew straight towards Sasuke. Despite the impending danger, however, Sasuke just smirked at Haku. How foolish. With that, the needles all pierced his body as Haku jumped away. Sasuke! Kakashi yelled, his eye wide upon seeing the water needles piercing his student's body, while Zabuza just chuckled. Everyone's eyes widened in shock, however, when Sasuke exploded in a puff of smoke. Kage Bunshin? Haku whispered in surprise. He tensed and spun around suddenly, just in time to cop a kick to the face, courtesy of Sasuke. Sasuke's ankle impacted with the mask, perfectly hooking his foot around Haku's head, which allowed him to carry the ninja with him during his spin kick, and send him flying back towards Zabuza. I can't have you underestimating my team by calling them brats, Kakashi said to the shocked Kiri ninja after quickly recovering from his own shock. Sasuke is Konoha's Rookie of the Year. Hinata is a Hyuga, the number 1 kunoichi of her graduating class, and the other is Uzumaki Naruto, wielder of the Mokuton ninjutsu bloodline. Zabuza, however, just started chuckling. Haku, do you realize that at this rate we'll be driven back? Yeah, we can't have that, Haku said as the air suddenly grew cold, while the ninja put his hands in a strange seal Sasuke had never seen before. Hijutsu. Makyu Hyosho. Secret technique. Demonic ice mirrors. The water on the ground around Sasuke suddenly rose up to form plates of water, which froze and took on an appearance akin to that of a mirror. The mirrors rose up and formed a dome around Sasuke, who looked around with an annoyed look on his face. Mixed element bloodline? TCH, I hate those. Mostly because he wouldn't be able to copy it, even if his Sharingan were to evolve to its most complete form. Haku moved over to one of the mirrors, and stepped into it. How he managed to fit in there, Sasuke had no idea. The wonders of chakra, he supposed. In any case, Haku could be seen standing inside the mirror, but then, just as Sasuke was about to smash it, an image of Haku appeared in every single one of the mirrors surrounding him. Well then, shall we begin? Haku asked. I'll show you my real speed. Sasuke saw it coming in slow motion. Haku shot out of one of the mirrors and headed right for him. However, unfortunately his body was not as quick to react as his eyes, and he had barely managed to raise his arms before the shoulder of his shirt was torn, and a cut appeared in his flesh. Then came another attack, and another, all of them too fast for Sasuke to properly react to. Sasuke. He heard Kakashi's voice from outside the dome as he covered his head with his arms. Sasuke-kun, Hinata yelled, and Sasuke looked up to see Hinata throwing a kunai at one of the mirrors. However, Haku came halfway out of the mirror and caught it with ease. This was good, however, as it forced him to stop the attacks on Sasuke, who took this time to think things through. His speed is greater than mine. This jutsu. It obviously moves partly into space-time territory. Is he hitching a ride on the light reflecting off the mirrors? TCH, too many theories and not enough data. And I don't particularly fancy getting hit again just to find out more, he thought, closing his eyes and thinking hard. Think. I can take off my weights, but even then, I doubt I'd be fast enough. In here, I'm like a sitting duck. I can't try to run, even if I create a bunch of cage bunshin. Besides, my chakra stores aren't nearly as large as Naruto's, so I can't waste chakra on clones that will probably be killed, anyway. If only Hinata hadn't been forced to protect Tazuna, she could have attacked from the outside, while I attacked from the inside. Now then, Haku's voice snapped him out of his thoughts, and he opened his eyes to see Haku in the mirrors again. Shall we continue? Sasuke screwed his eyes shut and waited for the pain. However, the only thing he noticed was a tremor in the ground, and then a heavy thud. He opened his eyes again and looked to the right, to see a wooden pole sticking out of the ground, and behind it was Haku, sprawled on the ground. Before Sasuke could recover from his surprise, Haku shot to his feet and dashed back into the mirror. Interesting jutsu you have there, came Naruto's voice from outside the dome, and Sasuke hated to admit it, but he had never before been so relieved to hear it. A Hyouten ninjutsu bloodline technique, utilizing not only nature manipulation, but also moving into space-time ninjutsu territory. Water and wind mixed to become ice. It allows you to move from mirror to mirror at the speed of light wherever the light from your mirror can reflect. To cope with the speed, the jutsu also improves your senses. To you, it must look like everything around you is moving in slow motion. Hey, that's what you can expect from Naruto, Sasuke thought with a smirk. Dumb as hell in most areas, but when it comes to analyzing and breaking down chakra and its technique, he is one of the fastest thinkers around. He couldn't have been here for more than a few seconds. However, like most jutsu, yours has flaws, Naruto continued, chuckling. The biggest one is that although you can see out the back, there is no mirror across from you to catch you if you move out of it. The second is that there is only one of you. A sensor, like me, utilizing a ninjutsu that reacts based on my thoughts, can easily predict from where you are going to strike based on your location. I admit, it was brilliant of you, leaving a chakra trace in every single mirror. However, you, the real one, will always carry chakra stores much larger than the other mirrors. You won't be able to attack Sasuke anymore. It's over. It is over? Haku repeated slowly. I'm afraid not. Your friend is still within my dome. I will kill him if you try anything. Sasuke, you can see him, right? In freaking slow motion, but I can't quite keep up. Remove the weights. I'll provide cover. Sasuke smirked as he reached for his wrists, removing the chakra bracelets, and then reaching for his ankles, removing identical bracelets. Haku came shooting out of another mirror, but stopped when another wooden pole shot up in front of him. He changed direction and shot into another mirror. It kept going like this for a while, Sasuke watching closely with his Sharingan as Haku shot out of mirror after mirror, getting blocked by Naruto's wood. He sat there, waiting for the perfect opportunity, and he knew Naruto was trying to create it. There it was. Yet another wooden pole shot up, blocking Haku's path and forcing him to turn right, Sasuke's left. Sasuke, who was sure Haku had lost all focus on him by now, crossed the distance between them in 2 quick steps. His speed greatly increased after removing his weights, and spun, swinging his sword. "I got you!" he exclaimed triumphantly as he felt his sword meet resistance, but cutting through it with ease. Upon completion of the swing, Haku's head was separated from his body. A millisecond after his death, the ice mirrors shattered, falling to the ground in a heap. In a blur, Naruto appeared next to Sasuke, patting him on the shoulder. "You alright? Why wouldn't I be?" Sasuke asked, raising an eyebrow. "You just killed someone," Naruto said. "Isn't your first kill supposed to be traumatic? It kind of was for me. There are things that are much more traumatic up here," Sasuke said as he pointed at his head. Naruto accepted this as the truth. After all, Sasuke had seen much death in his past. "Besides, I'm not a complete like you, so I'm not really affected." Usually, Naruto would have slugged Sasuke on the mouth for a comment like that, but now wasn't the time for that. So, he felt a change in subjects might be good. "Can't believe you lost in speed," he commented, grinning slightly. "He cheated," Sasuke grumbled. "He helped himself along with space-time jutsu." "Very true," Naruto said with a chuckle as he turned to look into the mist in the direction of their teammates. "This is strange. What's the matter?" Sasuke asked. "Zabuza isn't alone. There are 8 more chakra signatures around him that weren't there before." "Did Kakashi summon someone, you think?" "Yeah, and it's not much, but the mist has cleared a bit," Sasuke said, nodding slowly. He gestured for Naruto to follow him, and they walked through the mist, until they reached the chakra signatures. There, the mist was clear enough for them to see what was going on. Zabuza was standing with Kakashi in front of him. 8 dogs that had seemingly sprouted from the ground were all biting down on Zabuza's limbs, sword, and shoulder, keeping him in place. Both Junin's heads turned to stare at the 2 genin, and Naruto raised a hand, waving at Kakashi. "Yo, sensei. The kid has been taken care of. Good work, Sasuke, Naruto," Kakashi said, smiling at them, before looking at Zabuza again. "I'll show you something, Zabuza. This is my own original technique. It's not a copy." Kakashi went through 3 simple seals, and then grabbed his wrist and started channeling chakra into his hand with a call of Reikari, lightning cutter. The chakra, taking the form of electricity, started sparking around his hand, until the lightning covered his entire hand, which made Naruto and Sasuke go wide-eyed. Hey, are you seeing that?" Naruto asked in surprise. "Why yeah. With chakra output on that level, and with the lightning element no less. That should be able to cut through anything." "You're too dangerous," Kakashi told Zabuza, staring coldly at him. "Tazuna-san, who you're trying to kill, is this country's courage. The bridge he seeks to build is this country's hope. Your ambition sacrifices many people. That's not what a shinobi should do." "I don't give a damn," Zabuza muttered. "I fight for my own ideals, and that shall continue. I'll ask once more. Surrender," Kakashi advised. "Your future is death." Zabuza, hardcore to the end, just grinned behind his bandages at Kakashi in defiance. Kakashi sighed, then dashed forward and punched his hand straight through Zabuza's heart. The large dog that had been latched onto Zabuza's shoulder jumped back just in time for Kakashi's hand to protrude from Zabuza's back. And so ended the life of the terrifying demon of the bloody mist, Momochi Zabuza. Naruto supposed that this was a worthy death for him, fighting the copy ninja Kakashi. The lightning surrounding Kakashi's hand died down as Zabuza's eyes closed. The dogs poofed out of existence, and Kakashi lowered the man's body to the ground, pulling his hand out. "Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun," Hinata yelled out in relief, only just now noticing her teammates, having been completely focused on Kakashi's fight with Zabuza. "Chump had nothing on us," Naruto exclaimed triumphantly, giving Hinata a thumbs up, but Sasuke wasn't so happy. He grunted and crossed his arms. So you say, but it took 2 of us to take down the one of him. And if he wanted, he could have just killed me upon the first attack. I wasn't fast enough to dodge him. He was holding back. Well, aren't you a mood killer? Naruto grumbled as the mist cleared completely, to show a very large group of thugs at the end of the bridge, with a very short man wearing glasses and a business suit at the front. Well, the short man said, a cruel grin on his face. He talked big, but it seems Zabuza was nothing but a cute little devil after all. You are Gato. Kakashi spoke, which immediately caught the interest of his genin. Thank you for killing Zabuza, saving me the trouble of doing so myself, Gato said, still grinning. Hiring normal ninja is too troublesome. Not only are they more expensive, but there's always the chance that they might betray me. So I hire missing nin, and have them battle. Then, when both parties are weakened, I have them both killed with numbers. And now you, the Junin, are tired and weakened. I can go through with my plan. How's? Gato stopped rather suddenly and two kunai impacted with his forehead, piercing his brain. Kakashi looked over his shoulder to see that the throwers had been Naruto and Sasuke, who looked rather bored. I hate people who feel the need to brag about their plans. Sasuke muttered, while the thugs, shocked, stared at Gato's dead form, which had slumped to the ground. Hey, one of them yelled out, a grin suddenly appearing on his face. Damn ninja, you just killed our meal ticket. Now we're just gonna have to kill you, then pillage this village and take anything of value. He got yells of agreement from his companions as they all charged at the 4 ninja and the bridge builder. Then, an arrow was heard piercing the air, impacting with the bridge between the thugs and Team 7, making the thugs stop suddenly, their eyes widening at the sight behind Team 7 and Tazuna. Everyone looked back to see Inari standing with pretty much every male villager behind him, all of them carrying weapons and various sharp tools and crossbows. If you come any further onto our island, the citizens of this country will stop you with everything we've got. Naruto managed to keep from insulting Inari by remarking upon the fact that the boy was wearing a walk pan for a helmet, and instead just flashed the kid a thumbs up. Nice timing, Inari. Hee, a hero shows up at the last second, right? Inari said with a grin. Alright, let's help out increasing the numbers, Sasuke said, putting his hands in a cross seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In a poof of smoke, 7 more Sasuke appeared, all of them with identical smirks on their faces. Kakashi did the same, creating 15 clones. Then came Naruto. The entire bridge was filled with about 40 Naruto Kage Bunshin, all of them grinning brightly at the now terrified thugs, who immediately turned around and ran back to the ship that had carried them there, some of them even jumping into the water out of fear. As usual, I'm amazed by the sheer number. Sasuke muttered, sighing. You sure do like to overkill, don't you? Naruto just grinned as they all dispelled their clones, and the villagers started cheering. Hinata let out a "ha" as she attacked Naruto, who deflected the palm strike and countered with one of his own, which was dodged. It had been 3 weeks since the bridge was completed and Team 7 had returned to Konoha in triumph. Since the mission had been increased in rank, their mission history marked it as AB rank, which would do wonders for them in the long run. After all, if they could complete AB rank with no lasting injuries, AC rank was nothing. Sasuke appeared on Training Area 7 in a blur and waved at his 2 sparring teammates. Hey, Naruto, I'm tagging in. The Hokage wants to see you. Huh? Naruto asked, blinking as they both paused in their sparring, and Sasuke moved over, holding up his hand for Naruto to slap. What for? No idea. Kakashi told me to tell you that the Hokage wants to see you. That's all, Sasuke said, wiggling his hand. Naruto shrugged and slapped it with his own, tagging out as Sasuke took his place in front of Hinata, ready to continue the spar. Naruto flashed through hand seals and performed a Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique, disappearing with a blur and reappearing outside the Sandame's office window. He peered inside and saw that the old man was currently puffing contentedly on his pipe, reading that little orange book that Kakashi always read. Raising his hand, he knocked, making the old man jump and quickly hide the book in one of his desk drawers, looking toward Naruto, who waved happily. Ah, Naruto-kun, the Sandame said after moving over to the window and opening it, allowing Naruto to climb inside. Good of you to show up so fast. I heard you wanted to talk to me? Naruto said, raising an eyebrow as he moved to stand in front of the Sandame's desk. Unlike most ninja, he didn't stand at attention, instead slouching lazily with his hands in his pockets. Yes, I do. It is something very serious, an S-rank secret that has been kept since the day you were born. I get the feeling this isn't a good secret. Naruto muttered, sighing. Naruto-kun, you have always wondered why you experience such hatred from the villagers, have you not? The Sandame asked, and Naruto immediately tensed at that, standing straighter and giving the Sandame his full attention. Naruto thought hard about it, and several suspicions, which he and Sasuke had come up with growing up, surfaced in his mind. Since the day I was born, he muttered, narrowing his eyes. This wouldn't have anything to do with the Kyuubi, would it? Indeed it does, the Sandame said. The official story in this village is that the Yondaime, your father, gave his life to kill the Kyuubi. That is not completely true. He gave his life, he died a hero, and he stopped the Kyuubi from destroying the village. However, he didn't kill it. Naruto's eyes widened. The mysterious seal on my stomach. Yes, Naruto-kun, it is the seal that contains the Kyuubi, which Minato sealed into you. Why, though? Naruto asked, furrowing his brow. Why would he do that to me? That, I can't answer. Well, partly, at least, the Sandame said, puffing on his pipe. I have been studying the sealing technique he used, the Shiki Fusion, dead demon-consuming seal, and I have come to realize something. Minato only sealed half the Kyuubi's chakra inside you, not because he wished to, but because it was both physically and conceptually impossible to seal it all. It was just too great. I arrived on the scene in time to see your mother holding down the Kyuubi with her special chakra, already dying. You see, she was once the container of the Kyuubi, and it was forcefully extracted from her. In the middle of the sealing, Kushina was weakened, and her grip on the Kyuubi was loosened. The Kyuubi attempted to kill you as soon as the opportunity presented itself. Keyword being attempted, Naruto said, crossing his arms. You know, seeing as I'm still here. Indeed. Both Minato and Kushina jumped in front of the Kyuubi's claw and allowed it to pierce them instead of you. I know that you, like all orphans, have always wondered if they really loved you. That is the proof of their love. But no one knew about it, right? Naruto asked, furrowing his brow again. I mean, I have never heard anyone talk about how Uzumaki Kushina was the container of the Kyuubi. So why do people know about me? It was impossible to keep the sealing completely secret, Naruto-kun. However, when I was reinstated as the Hokage upon Minato's death, I made a law stating that no one was to speak of you being the new container of the Kyuubi. The punishment for speaking of it was death. However, that did not seem to stop them from preventing their children from associating with you in other ways, I am sad to say. Well, good thing you told me now, when I've been around Sasuke long enough to think about things and actually use logic sometimes, Naruto said, nodding. Had you told me when I was younger, I probably would have freaked. I am actually amazed you are taking this so well, the Sandame said, smiling proudly at Naruto. I had expected a more surprised reaction. Well, Sasuke and I have theorized for years now, Naruto said with a shrug. The subject of the Kyuubi has come up many times. Besides, this isn't the worst shock a kid could experience. It's not? The Sandame asked, his eyebrows rising in surprise. Nope. I heard a story from Kakashi about this kid in River Country who grew up calling his single parent, Mom, only to later find out that she was an hermaphrodite and was in actuality his dad. Now that's a shocker if I've ever heard one. The Sandame gave an exasperated sigh, but couldn't help but smile nonetheless. After all, leave it to Naruto to add even a small amount of humor to any situation. Well, in any case, it's actually a relief for me, to hear that they don't hate me for me, but rather the Kyuubi. So, what are you going to do now, Naruto-kun? The Sandame asked, stopping Naruto, who had opened the window and made to climb out. Naruto looked at the Sandame with a grin on his face. That's obvious. I'm just gonna have to prove to them that I'm me, Senju Naruto, legacy of the Shodai, Naidame, and Yondaime Hokage, future Rokudame Hokage. Rokudame? The Sandame asked curiously. Why not Godam? Well, let's face it, Gigi, you're getting up there in the years. You're probably gonna retire again soon, and I'm not strong enough to be Hokage yet, Naruto said with a shrug. Then, he waved at the old man and jumped out the window. When he returned to the training area, he found that Kakashi was there, watching as Sasuke and Hinata sparred. Naruto walked up to stand beside his sensei and noticed that the two genin had stepped up the game. Hinata's Byakugan was activated, Sasuke's sword was out, and his Sharingan was blazing. The two moved with amazing speed. Hell, even after such a short time, Naruto dare say that Hinata's speed rivaled his own. Not Sasuke's though. Sasuke had always been the fastest of the two of them, and it showed. Alright, I'd say that's enough, Kakashi announced once the two genin froze, Sasuke's Chikuto an inch away from Hinata's face. Both of them were panting softly, sweat on their faces as their respective dojutsu deactivated. Kakashi glanced at Naruto. Oh, welcome back, Naruto. How was your meeting with the Hokage? It was good, Naruto said, nodding slowly. Found out that my mom and dad died saving my life, and that my dad sealed the Kyuubi into my gut. Hinata's eyes widened at hearing that, while Sasuke's eyes narrowed slightly. The seal on your stomach, the Uchiha stated in realization. It seems one of our theories was right. Yeah, it's a relief, though. The people hate me for the Kyuubi, and not for something like my personality or my name, or anything like that, Naruto said, a small smile on his face. He glanced at Hinata. You don't seem very surprised. I have heard whispers about you, Hinata said softly. I have heard people whisper Kyuubi when talking about you. I never really knew what they meant by that, but now I do. I'm glad to see you're all so mature about this, Kakashi said, smiling brightly at them all. I had honestly expected a more violent reaction from at least you, Naruto. It was a shocker, but it was no hermaphrodite dad revelation, Naruto said with a shrug. Alright, I'm going to talk to you about some things, Kakashi said, gesturing for Sasuke and Hinata to come closer. It's partially about your training, and partially about something I think you will find even more interesting. Well, are you going to tell us, or keep us in suspense? Sasuke asked as he crossed his arms, which made Kakashi smile. I was thinking of making you beg to hear about it, but I guess you guys wouldn't do that. Alright, first of all, the training. I would have wanted to do some 1-1-1 training with each of you, but things have come up. Hinata, I talked to Hiyashi-sama about your progress. He expressed great disbelief, but wants you to come home for a spar with your sister. Hinata's eyes widened at the opportunity to show her father how strong she had gotten. Sasuke, you will be training with me. We'll be doing some one-on-one, because I'm sure you couldn't help but copy my Reikiri when you saw it. Sasuke huffed and looked away, his way to show that he was a bit embarrassed at getting caught. And Naruto, Jiraiya-sama of the legendary Sannin has sent word that he will be coming to the village soon to oversee your training. Seems like we'll all be powerhouses once our training is complete, Sasuke asked, smirking, which made Naruto scoff in amusement. I'm already a powerhouse. It is true that at present, Naruto is probably the one who has the most power and stamina, Kakashi said, nodding. However, Sasuke is much more experienced in genjutsu, and possesses greater speed and a sharper mind. Hinata, I'm sorry to say, is not in the lead in any area. However, although it's unofficial, she possesses great knowledge in medicine, and will no doubt become an amazing medic nin in time. Not to mention that her brain has the potential to become greater than any of yours, Kakashi said, rubbing his chin and seeing Hinata blush at the praise. Hey, no arguments here, Naruto said with a bright grin. She's already smarter than me, and it won't be long until she leaves Sasuke in the dust in that field as well. As long as I'm satisfied with my own level of intelligence, I couldn't care less, Sasuke said simply. Now, what was this thing we would find even more interesting? Oh, yes, Kakashi said as he dug into his kunai pouch, taking out 3 pieces of paper and handing them over. I nominated you all for the Chunin exams. It's in a week, so we won't be getting as much training in as you probably would have liked, but I think it's worth it. Though this is just a nomination. Whether to take the exam is up to each of you. Those who wish to take it should sign these papers and turn them in at room 301 at the academy in a week's time at 1600 hours. Are you sure we're ready for this? Hinata asked after taking her application form and staring down at it. She looked up, however, as Kakashi placed a hand on her head. Hinata, I know you don't feel like you have contributed to this team, and so you probably feel like you're weak. However, this couldn't be farther from the truth. I have watched your training, and I'll tell you now. You're ready. Yeah, Hinata, Listen to the Cyclops, but not really a Cyclops because he actually has an eye under the headband, Naruto said with a grin. Your speed rivals my own as it is, and with your Byakugan and Hyuga Taijutsu, you're a force to be reckoned with. And as we've already stated, you're much more intelligent than the blockhead, Sasuke said, jutting his thumb in Naruto's direction. Only to get 2 fingers jabbed into his kidney, courtesy of said blockhead, making him sink to his knees, clutching at his side in pain. So, later found Naruto and Sasuke walking through Konoha, coming from Sasuke's favorite dango shop. They had used rock paper scissors in order to decide whether to go to Ichiraku Ramen or Toyama Dango. Naruto, like almost always, lost. Just once, I'd like to get ramen. Naruto muttered, chewing on the dango stick in his mouth. Yeah, well, Sasuke started, but stopped when they heard a very familiar voice scream in fear. It was Konohamaru, the Hokage's grandson, who idolized Naruto and Sasuke. Their eyes widened as they took off toward Konohamaru's voice, only to sweat drop when they landed on a tree branch and saw that Konohamaru and his 2 friends, Moegi and Udon, were being chased by none other than Haruno Sakura. Then, Konohamaru, not looking where he was going, ran right into a man dressed in all black, wearing kabuki makeup, getting knocked on his ass. That hurt. The kabuki man said, standing next to a blonde girl who had her hair done up in 4 spiky ponytails. The man reached down and grabbed Konohamaru by the scarf and hoisted him into the air. I said, that hurt, you little piece of shit. Hey, Naruto, Sasuke muttered as Sakura started apologizing. What do you make of them? Sanagakure shinobi, judging by the forehead protectors, probably here for the Chunin exams, Naruto muttered back. From the fan, I'd say the girl uses Fuuten ninjutsu. The guy, whoever, what's that thing on his back? No doubt some kind of tool. Sasuke muttered. Suna is known for their grasp on Fuuten ninjutsu, and for their skills as puppeteers, so. A puppet, then. Most likely, Sasuke said with a nod, fishing a kunai out of his pouch. Well, we better stop him from hurting our cute little underling. He gave the kunai to Naruto, who took aim and threw it perfectly so that the ring on the bottom impacted with the puppeteer's thumb, making him drop Konohamaru and turn his head to look up at the 2 genin. Hey now, Naruto said, crossing his arms as he sat down on the branch, just because the Chunin exam has allowed you to enter our village, that doesn't mean you can just go around beating up our kids. Sasuke-kun, Sakura cried happily, which made Naruto scratch his head. And what am I, chopped liver? TCH, more people who piss me off. The kabuki man said as he grabbed the bundle on his back and set it down. I hate show-offs like you 2 the most. Hey, you're even going to use karasu? The girl asked, her eyes widening in surprise. Well, I can't say that I would mind a good brawl, Naruto said, then jutted his thumb in the direction of the tree trunk. But I don't reckon he's keen. Kankuro, stop it, came a voice from the other side of the trunk. Standing upside down on a branch was a red-haired teen around Naruto and Sasuke's age, his arms crossed. On his back was a very large gourd, which made both Naruto and Sasuke raise an eyebrow. You're an embarrassment to our village. The kabuki man, Kankuro, flinched. Losing control over yourself in a fight, how pathetic. The redhead continued in a creepy, monotone voice. Why do you think we came to Konoha? Listen, Gaara, they started it, and… Shut up, I'll kill you. Kankuro flinched again, and started visibly trembling now. Oh okay, I'm sorry. I'm also sorry, the girl said, smiling nervously. Really sorry. Sorry to you guys, Gaara the redhead said to Naruto and Sasuke, as the blonde stood up and leaned against Sasuke's shoulder. Did you see his eyes? He whispered as Gaara vanished in a swirl of sand, to reappear between Kankuro and the blonde girl. Yeah, Sasuke muttered, they weren't exactly pleasant. The 2 jumped down when the Suna team turned away and walked off. Hey, you 3, Sasuke said as they landed in front of the Konohamaru Corps and Sakura. Your names? Gaara was quiet for a moment, staring at them. Then, he muttered, Sabaku no Gaara. This is my sister, Temari, and my brother, Kankuro. I'm also interested in you too. Your names? Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto. Haven't decided on what clan name to use yet, though. The trio left, and Naruto and Sasuke were left staring at the spot where they had been previously. Naruto, Sasuke said, glancing at the blonde. That gourd kid had creepy eyes. What do you make of him? TCH. You think his eyes were creepy? You should have gotten a taste of his chakra. It was vile. I guess we'll have to be careful around him. Hinata slowly exhaled as she stood in the training room in the Hyuga main family manor. She had known that she had progressed with Naruto and Sasuke's training, but she didn't think she was this good. Her reactions had greatly improved. Hanabi's strikes seemed to move in slow motion now. Not to mention that those that actually hit didn't pack the same punch anymore, and Hinata's strikes were a lot stronger. That was why Hanabi was on the mat, panting, and Hinata was standing, for the first time ever. She didn't even glance at her father, not wanting to see the pure surprise that she knew was visible on his face. He had never expected much of her, always calling her weak and a failure. She didn't want to see that such a thing was exactly what he had expected of her. "That's enough," Hiyashi said, and his voice clearly showed the surprise Hinata didn't want to see. It would seem as though being placed on Kakashi's team paid off. "Kakashi-sensei has taught me to work in a team, and showed me many ways to use my skills to their fullest potential, father," Hinata said, nodding slowly, still not looking at Hiyashi. "However, I have my teammates to thank for my increase in said skills. The Uchiha and Uzumaki boys," Hiyashi muttered softly. "They have some use after all. To make someone like you capable of beating Hanabi." Hinata fought to maintain her strong expression. Both Naruto and Sasuke's voices echoed in her head, things that they had said during their training sessions over the last few weeks. "Oi, Hinata, don't be so meek all the time. You gotta show guts and energy, or no one will take you seriously. Stand up for yourself. Your weakness is your lack of self-confidence, that's all. Guts. Say it with me, come on, guts." A smile slowly appeared on Hinata's face, and she turned to look at her father, who looked surprised at the confidence shining in her eyes. "Just watch, father. I'll just become stronger and stronger." Team 7 stood in the academy, watching the commotion taking place before them. A large group of genin were standing in front of the door to classroom 301, which was blocked by two cocky-looking genin, who were beating up a team that were trying to make their way inside. "Naruto," Sasuke said, nudging his friend, who nodded. "Yeah, this entire corridor is covered in chakra. Definitely a genjutsu. Well, even if you hadn't noticed it, people should notice the fact that we are just on the second floor," Hinata said softly, though in a much stronger voice than Naruto and Sasuke were used to. "Let's just slip by, nice and quiet," Sasuke said as he started walking. "This is probably something designed to weed out the weaklings." They reached the third floor, and were heading for room 301, when a voice came from above them. "Hey, you, the one with the dark eyes." They all looked up at the catwalk above to see a kid wearing a very tight, green jumpsuit, and orange leg warmers. His black hair had a bowl-cut style, and his eyebrows were amazingly thick. He was looking down at them, a very serious look on his face. "What is it?" Sasuke asked in boredom. "Will you fight me right here?" the kid asked. "A fight right now?" Sasuke asked, and the kid nodded, jumping down to their level, landing in a crouch. "My name is Rock Lee. And you are Uchiha Sasuke." "Hey, so you know?" Sasuke asked, raising an eyebrow. "I want to fight you," Rock Lee said. "I want to test my techniques against the offspring of the genius ninja clan." "You're challenging me, even knowing the Uchiha name," Sasuke said, narrowing his eyes a smidgen. "Frankly, you're a fool. You're about to learn what this name means, thick brows." "Please," Rock Lee said, getting into a stance where he held one of his hands in a "come on" gesture, the other hand behind his back. "I'll say this, you cannot defeat me, because, right now I am the strongest Konoha genin." "Sounds fun, I'll do it," Sasuke said with a smirk. Sasuke-kun, you really shouldn't," Hinata said, pointing up at the clock on the wall. "We only have 30 minutes to get to the meeting." "Don't worry, I'll be done in 5 minutes," Sasuke said simply. Hey, don't kill fellow Konoha ninja," Naruto muttered. "Kill?" Lee asked, raising an eyebrow. "Well, I have long since learned not to underestimate any opponent," Sasuke said as he reached behind his back, grabbing his Chikuto. "I won't use ninjutsu, as I don't want to destroy the academy. However, I won't go easy on you, thick brows." Sasuke charged forward, but before he could unsheath his sword, Lee came at him with a spin kick, which forced him to duck. Lee didn't let up, however, instead spinning 360 degrees and lowering himself to aim another kick at Sasuke's ducking form with incredible speed. He's fast, Sasuke thought, jumping over the kick and twisting in midair, bringing his heel down toward Lee, who pushed off the ground and leapt out of the way. That was fast, Sasuke commented as he rose to his feet. You should feel proud of yourself. If we keep this up, and I don't use this, I won't keep up with you, he said, his irises turning red, two tomo appearing in each eye. Sasuke charged forward, brimming with confidence, only for Lee to duck and kick Sasuke up into the air without any effort, showing that he had been hiding his true speed all along, which made Sasuke grit his teeth as he flew through the air. Shit, what the hell was I talking about? I don't underestimate my opponents? You just did, you idiot. Sasuke barked at himself in his mind. My techniques are neither ninjutsu or genjutsu, Lee said as he vanished, reappearing behind Sasuke in the air in a cage buyo, shadow dance. Yes, my techniques are simple taijutsu, Sasuke-kun. You may not believe it because it is so basic, but they say that the Sharingan has the ability to reveal all types of nin, gen, and taijutsu. It is true that by reading ninjutsu and genjutsu, which need chakra to be raised and seals to be formed, you get an advantage through the Sharingan, but taijutsu is a little different. What do you mean? Even if you can read my movements with your eyes, your body does not have the speed to react to my taijutsu. Basically, even if you can see it, if your body can't move, then it's useless. The bandages on Lee's hands loosened as they flew through the air, and Naruto's eyes immediately landed on Lee's hands as the boy kept speaking to Sasuke, something about the difference between geniuses and hard workers. Lee's hands were covered in bruises and stitches, signs that he had been training non-stop for a long time. Naruto knew, because his own hands once looked like that. Suddenly, a pinwheel flew through the air and pinned the bandages to the wall, stopping Lee in midair and causing him to fall to the ground, landing in a crouch. Sasuke flipping and landing in a crouch as well. That's far enough, Lee, yelled a ninja turtle that had suddenly arrived on the scene, which had thrown the pinwheel. So, you were watching. Lee muttered to the turtle in a kneeling position. Lee, that technique is forbidden. I'm sorry. The turtle gave Lee a glare, making him flinch in fear. But I wasn't planning on using the other one. Fool, the turtle exclaimed, making Lee flinch yet again. You think you can get away with an excuse like that? You already know what it means for a ninja to reveal his special techniques. Yes, are you prepared to pay? Yes, then here comes Guy-sensei. An explosion of smoke erupted on the turtle's back, and when it cleared, an adult version of Rock Lee could be seen standing in a ridiculous pose, wearing the Junin vest. Geez, you guys are the epitome of adolescence. The man yelled out, freaking the entire Team 7 out with his appearance. Lee, he said, gesturing for Lee to come closer. When he did, he was punched in the face with enough force to send him flying. You fool. The man dropped down on one knee, staring sadly at Lee. You are, sensei. That's enough, Lee, the man yelled, hugging Lee. You don't need to say it. Sensei. Yes, this is what youth is all about. Sensei, what the hell are these freaks? Sasuke muttered to Naruto, who crossed his arms. I have no idea. Creepy as hell, though. Naruto said, staring in disgust at the two spandex-wearing ninjas. At hearing Naruto's words, the man, Guy, looked over at them, making all three of them flinch. Hey, you guys, how's Kakashi-sensei doing? You know Kakashi? Sasuke asked, surprised. Know him? Guy asked with a chuckle. Then, in the blink of an eye, he disappeared and reappeared behind the trio. People refer to us as eternal rivals. 50 wins, 49 losses. I'm stronger than Kakashi. Sorry about Lee. I swear to this face it won't happen again. This beautiful face, that is. You guys should head over to the classroom, he said as he threw a kunai at the pinwheel, knocking the bandages loose and allowing Lee to rewrap his hands. Good luck, Lee. Later. With that, Guy vanished, while Lee gave a salute. Sasuke-kun, Lee said, looking to Sasuke. I'll say one more thing. The truth is, I came here to test my abilities. I lied before. Most likely, the strongest Konoha genin is on my team. I've entered this to defeat him, and you're also one of my targets. Be prepared during the exam, he exclaimed, before jumping up on the catwalk again. You are incredibly lucky no one was here to see that. Naruto said, sighing in relief. Especially after all that bragging about how you never underestimate an opponent. Shut it, Sasuke muttered as he crossed his arms, his Sharingan deactivating. He spoke so damn boldly, I thought he went all out from the start. I was wrong, alright? See his hands? Naruto asked, which made Hinata blink while Sasuke nodded. His hands? Hinata asked curiously. They were covered in bruises and stitches, Sasuke informed her. That guy has probably spent day after day training non-stop, Naruto chipped in, giving a low, impressed whistle. Looks like there are some really strong ones in this exam, Hey, sounds like fun, Sasuke said, turning around to smirk at his teammates. Let's go, Naruto, Hinata. Yeah, yes. When they reached the door to room 301, they found Kakashi waiting outside, his hands in his pockets. Oh, good, all three of you came, he said, looking from each genin to the next. Now we can properly take the exam. What do you mean, sensei? Hinata asked, blinking. The truth is that this test can only be taken by teams of 3. But you said it was voluntary, Naruto muttered. You lied? If I had told the truth, there was the chance of one of you getting pressured into taking the exam, Kakashi explained. This way, I could make sure that only those of you who truly felt ready to take the exam would come. If only 1 or 2 of you had shown up, then the exam would have ended right here for you. But you all came of your own free will, he said and smiled brightly at them. You guys are my proud team. Now go. When the team stepped inside the classroom, they found that it was filled with genin, all of whom turned to look at them as they entered. Is anyone else getting a feeling like we're being watched? Naruto asked unnecessarily. Suddenly, a blonde missile that everyone recognized as Yamanaka Ino flew straight at Sasuke, hugging him from behind. Sasuke-kun, you're late. She cried happily, blushing at merely touching Sasuke and putting on an extra seductive smile. I haven't seen you for a while, so I've been waiting in excitement. Now, Sasuke knew exactly how to crush a fangirl's advances. Therefore, he furrowed his brow, looked over his shoulder at Ino, and muttered, "Who are you?" As expected, Ino's jaw dropped, her eyes widened, and her grip on him slackened, allowing him to move over to Naruto and Hinata, who shook their heads. What's this? You guys are taking this stupid test too? Came Shikamaru's voice as he approached with his best friend, Akamichi Choji. Hey, I wouldn't have thought you had the energy to take this exam, Shikamaru, Naruto said with a chuckle, while Shikamaru sighed. It's troublesome, but Ino threatened our lives, so we had no choice. Yahoo found you, came the voice of the ever-jovial Kiba, approaching with Shino and Sakura. Sasuke-kun, Sakura said happily upon seeing Sasuke, who just looked away from her. Well, everyone is assembled. Geez, you guys too? Shikamaru asked. I see. All 9 of this year's rookie genin are taking the exam, Kiba said, humming. I wonder how far we will get. Sasuke, Naruto? You seem confident, Kiba, Sasuke said with a scoff. We did a lot of training. We won't lose to you, Kiba said confidently. Hey, you guys, you should be more quiet, came a new voice, and they all looked to see a bespectacled teenager with gray hair in a ponytail approaching. He wore a Konoha Hite 8, and looked like he couldn't be older than 17. You guys are rookies just out of the academy, right? Screaming like schoolgirls, geez. This isn't a picnic, you know. And who are you? Sasuke asked. This guy gives me a creepy feeling. Naruto muttered. I'm Kabuto. But instead of that, look behind you. Everyone did so, and saw a team of Omegakure genin glaring heatedly at them. Those guys behind you are from Omegakure no Sato. They have short tempers, Kabuto explained with a smile. Everyone is nervous about the exam, so quiet down before you cause a scene. Well, I can't blame you. You're clueless rookies. You remind me of how I used to be. Kabuto-san, right? Sakura asked. Yeah, so, this is your second time? Nope, my 7th time, Kabuto said, smiling still. This exam is held twice a year, so this is my 4th year. Wow, so you know a lot about this exam? That's right, Kabuto said, nodding as he reached into his pocket and took out a deck of cards. Tell you what, how about I share some info with you cute rookies? With these ninja info cards. Ninja info cards? They are basically cards that have info burned into them with chakra, Kabuto explained as he set the deck down on the floor. I have 4 years worth of info here, over 200 cards. He took one of the cards and set it down in front of him, face up to show that the card was completely blank. They looked blank, but to open the info on these cards, you have to use my chakra. For example, Kabuto put his hand in a half-ram seal, while the other hand was pressing a finger against the card on the floor. There was a poof of smoke, and when it cleared, it showed a map of the elemental countries, with several numbers written on it. Wow, a really easy-to-read graph, Sakura spoke in amazement. What kind of info is this? This is the number of those taking the exam, and the breakdown of what country they are from, Kabuto explained. Do you have cards with info on individuals? Sasuke asked suddenly, making Kabuto chuckle. There are some guys you're worried about? Of course. The info on all of this exam's participants isn't perfect, but I do have it. Even if you guys say something about these guys and I'll take a look. Gaara of Sanagakure no Sato, and Rock Lee of Konohagakure no Sato. Oh, you know their names? Should be easy, then, Kabuto said and swiped 3 cards out of the deck, holding them up. Show me, Sasuke ordered. Okay, first is Rock Lee. He's a year older than you guys. Mission history. 20D rank completed, 12C rank completed. His sensei is Maida Guy. His taijutsu has improved greatly in this year. The rest is nothing impressive. Last year he gained attention as a talented new genin, but he did not participate in the exam. Like you guys, this is his first time. On his team are Hyuga Neji and Tenten, Kabuto said, putting the card back in the deck, before channeling his chakra into the second card. Next is Sabaku no Gaara. Mission history. 8C rank completed, 1B rank. Wow, a B rank mission as a genin. Since he's a newcomer from a foreign country, I don't have much info, but it seems he returned from all of his missions without even a scratch. Alright, I'll bite, Kiba said. Show me these 3, he ordered, gesturing for Team 7. Getting worried, Kiba? Naruto asked with a small grin as Kabuto took 3 cards out of the deck. Alright, Team 7 of Konohagakure no Sato's rookies. Mission history. 12D rank, and 1B rank mission completed. Wow, a B rank here as well. All 3 of them have amazing stats, though Uchiha Sasuke is by far the speed demon, and Uzumaki Naruto is the powerhouse, with great strength, and a stamina that is off the charts. Sasuke is a bit more well-rounded, while Hyuga Hinata is the weakest, although she has shown an amazing improvement in the last few weeks. And saying that she is the weakest of these 3 doesn't exactly make her the weakest of the rookies, not by a long shot. Everyone were staring at Team 7 in a new light upon hearing this. Hinata was staring intently at a spot on the wall, trying not to pay attention to the staring. Sasuke was smirking, and Naruto was grinning. Konoha, Suna, Aim, Kusa, Taki, Otto. Many outstanding genin from the various hidden villages are here to take the exam. Well, Otto is a small village just created last year, so there isn't much info, but the rest of the hidden villages are filled with talented youngsters, Kabuto said, making perspiration break out on Sakura's brow. So basically, all the people here are. Yup, Kabuto said with a smirk. Like Lee, Gaara, Sasuke, Naruto, and Hinata, they are the top elite from the various countries. Naruto's well-trained eyes caught movement in the crowd, and he saw a ninja with an Otto headband flying through the air, throwing 2 kunai into the floor in front of Kabuto, making him jump back just in time for another Otto ninja, this one with his head covered in bandages, to appear in front of him, taking a swing at him. Kabuto dodged, smirking, but his glasses suddenly shattered, and he collapsed to his knees, throwing up. The Otto team, joined by a young female, stood in front of Kabuto, radiating killer intent. Pathetic, the bandaged ninja said. Aren't you supposed to be a 4-year veteran? Write this down on your cards. The spiky-haired ninja with the 3 kanji for death on his shirt said, smirking. The 3 Otogakure ninjas, definite future Chunin. An explosion of smoke went down at the front of the class, and a voice was heard. Quiet down, you worthless bastards. What is this? The smoke cleared to show a large amount of ninjas. At the front stood a man in a black coat, his head covered by a bandana. His face had 2 long scars going across it, giving him a real veteran look. Thank you for waiting, the scarred man said with a smirk. I am the examiner for the Chunin selection exam's first test, Morino Ibiki. He reached out and pointed at the Otto ninjas. Otogakure guys, stop doing as you please before the exam. Do you want to fail already? I apologize. This is our first time. We got a bit carried away. the bandaged ninja said, but his tone of voice clearly told everyone that his apology was nowhere near sincere. Ibiki scoffed. Here's a good opportunity to say this. There will be no fighting without the permission of the examiner. Even if permission is granted, killing your opponent will not be tolerated. Those pigs that disobey me will be failed immediately. Do I make myself clear? There was no answer. Instead, everyone was just staring at Ibiki, who looked around. We will now start the first test in the Chunin exam. Instead of your current seating arrangements, you will pick out one of these tabs and sit in the seat assigned to you, Ibiki said, holding up a piece of wood with a number on end. We will then hand out the exams. A paper test? Naruto muttered to Sasuke, who smirked. Naruto had never been a big fan of paper tests. The genin did as told, and Naruto sat near the front, with Hinata next to him. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, smiling at him. Let's do our best. As always, Naruto said with a small grin. Do not turn your tests over, Ibiki said, holding up a piece of chalk. Listen closely to what I'm about to say, he said and started writing on the blackboard. There are many important rules to this first test. I'll write it on the board while I explain, but questions will not be allowed, so listen carefully. The first rule. You guys will all start off with 10 points. The test is made up of 10 questions and each one is worth a point, but this test uses a subtraction system. Basically, if you answer all the questions correctly, you keep your 10 points. But say if you miss 3 questions, you will lose 3 points and will have 7. The second rule. This is a team test. Whether you pass or not will be determined by the combined score of your teammates. So, each team will compete to see how many points they can hold on to from the initial total of 30. Wait a second, Sakura shouted. I don't understand this initial points system either. But why is it a team test? Shut up, you don't have the right to question me. There is a reason for this. Be quiet and listen, Ibiki said, narrowing his eyes. Okay, and the most important rule. The third rule is that during the exam, anyone caught by the testing officers, doing sneaky activities, namely cheating, will have 2 points subtracted for every offense. He said, smirking in a decidedly evil-looking way. Realize that the pathetic ones that get caught cheating will be destroying themselves. As shinobi trying to achieve the level of Chunin, be proud ninjas. Naruto perked up at that. There was something strange about that statement, but he didn't put much thought into it. And the final rule. Those that lose all their initial points during the test and those that don't answer any questions correctly will be failed along with their 2 teammates. Ibiki exclaimed, shocking the genin. The exam will last 1 hour. Begin. Naruto turned over his test and raised an eyebrow. These weren't questions that anyone could answer. Pretty much only a brainiac could answer those questions without any trouble. Like Sasuke, or Hinata, or Sakura. Naruto could answer many things about being a ninja. He could do most of the things in the questions, but he couldn't exactly calculate, with numbers, how hard he'd have to throw a kunai, and in what angle, to hit an opponent 300 feet away. That crap was all instinct. A smirk appeared on his face. He glanced over at someone who was filling out his test at a high speed. He waited until the guy was finished, setting his pen down on the desk with a proud smile on his face. Naruto's smirk widened. Time to pass the test, and take out some opposition in the process, he thought as he focused. A smoke bomb rolled out of his sleeve and exploded upon impacting with the ground, erupting in a smoke so thick that you couldn't even see 3 inches ahead of yourself. Roars of anger could be heard throughout the classroom as no one could see their tests. Windows were opened, letting the smoke out, and once it was cleared, more cries of anger could be heard. Naruto was filling out his test, and was chuckling to himself. Several people in the room had suddenly lost their test. Very impressed, Ibiki held up his hand for silence. Everyone who's lost their test might as well get out. You fail, along with your team. With growling protests, the people who'd lost their tests were ushered out of the room, along with their teams. Though I'm interested in learning who, exactly, did that, Ibiki thought as he looked around the room, locking eyes with one Uzumaki Naruto, who was dressed in a Nidaime-like shirt, and wore a very similar hapori. A smirk slowly appeared on his face when he saw that Naruto had already finished his test. 45 minutes later, Ibiki looked at the clock on the wall, and nodded to himself. Okay, and now, we will begin the 10th question. Now, before we get to it, I'd like to go over the added rules for this question. Shock went through the genin as the door opened, and Kankuro, the puppet user from Suna, who'd been to the bathroom, entered the room. "Hey, nice timing," Ibiki said, smirking. "Was your doll playing beneficial?" The puppet user twitched, surprised that he'd been caught. "Just sit down," Ibiki said, and the puppet user complied. "I'll now explain. These are the rules of desperation. First, for this 10th question, you must decide whether you will take it or not. Choose?" Tamari from Suna shouted. "What happens if we choose not to?" Ibiki chuckled darkly. "If you choose not to, your points will be reduced to 0. You'll fail, along with your 2 teammates." Everyone started to shout about how, of course, they were going to take it, but Ibiki interrupted them all. "And now, the other rule," he said, silencing them all. "If you choose to take it, and answer incorrectly, that person will lose the right to ever take the Chunin selection exam again." "What kind of stupid rule is that?" Kiba roared. "There are guys here who have taken the exam before." Ibiki chuckled darkly again. Only this chuckle was the kind one would use in front of someone when taking extreme pleasure in ripping their guts out. "You guys were unlucky. This year, it's my rules. But I am giving you a way out. Those that aren't confident can choose not to take it, and try again next year," he said, smirking at them all. "Now, let's begin the 10th question. Those that do not wish to take it, raise your hand. Once your number is confirmed, leave." "I can do this," Naruto thought, closing his eyes. "There's no way I can lose. I refuse to lose. I'm gonna become Hokage one day. I can't stop here," he thought as he turned his head, looking to Sasuke, who had a determined look on his face. Next, he looked at a nervous Hinata, who looked at him. Grinning, he flashed her a thumbs up, which seemed to fill her with renewed confidence. Several genin quit, causing their teams to quit as well. Then, when it seemed like no one else was going to quit, Ibiki spoke up. "Alright, does anyone else want to quit?" No one answered. "Well then, to the 57 who remain. Congratulations on passing the first test." Everyone froze, staring at him, shocked. "Wait, what do you mean?" Sakura asked, wiping sweat from her bigger-than-average brow. "We already pass? What about the 10th question?" Ibiki grinned in a friendly manner, which was strange, since everything about him was anything but friendly. There never was such a thing. Or, you could say that those 2 choices were the 10th question. "Hey, then what were the first 9 questions for?" Tamari shouted. "They were pointless, then." "They were not pointless," Ibiki said, letting out a chuckle. "They had already served their intended purpose," he said, turning serious. "To test your individual information gathering ability. That purpose." Naruto smiled. He aced that test. First, as the rules explained, success on this test is based on the whole team doing well. This puts pressure on each member not to mess things up for their teammates, Ibiki explained, looking over the genins. But the questions on this test were not the types that a mere genin could answer. Because of that, I'm sure most of the people came to the conclusion that to score points, you'd have to cheat. Basically, the premise of this test is to cheat. As cheating targets, we had 2 or so Chunin, who knew all the answers, mixed into the crowd. To help you guys out. "Piece of cake," Naruto said, smirking. Ibiki chuckled and started untying his bandana. "But those who cheat poorly fail, of course," he said and removed the bandana, causing many of the genin to recoil in fright. His head was covered with horrible burns, screwholes, and scars. Because, at times, information is more important than life. And on missions in the battlefield, people risk their lives to get their hands on it. Naruto raised an eyebrow. This guy has been through a lot, he thought, his respect for the man rising. A real veteran. If the enemy or third party notices you, there is no guarantee the info will be accurate, Ibiki said as he put on his bandana again. "I want you to remember this. Important information in your hands can be a powerful weapon for your comrades and for the village. So, we had you gather information through cheating. This clearly separated those that did not have the right abilities. But, I don't understand the final question," Tamari said, making Ibiki smile. "But, question 10, is the true purpose of this test. Let me explain. The 10th question, the take it or not take it decision. Obviously, these were painful choices. Those who choose the latter fail along with their teammates. Those who choose to take it could lose the chance to ever take the test again. A true leap of faith." Naruto nodded to himself. It was a very good way to weed out those who couldn't take the pressure. "How about these 2 choices? Say you guys become Chunin. Your mission is to steal a secret document. The amount of ninjas, their abilities, etc., is unknown to you. And, of course, there could be traps set all around you. Now, do you accept, or not accept? Ibiki asked, turning serious once more. Naruto was starting to get pissed off. Was this guy bipolar? Because you don't want to die. Because you don't want your comrades hurt. Can you avoid the dangerous mission? The answer is no. No matter what the danger, there are missions you can't avoid. The ability to be courageous, and survive any hardship. This is the ability needed to become a Chunin captain. Those who can't put their destinies on the line, who cling to the uncertain future of, there's always next year, and then walk away from their chance. Those pieces of trash, who can only make such cowardly choices, don't have the right to become a Chunin. That's how I feel. Those who chose to take it, answered the tough 10th question correctly. You will be able to survive any troubles you face in the future. You have made it through the entrance. The first test of the Chunin selection exam is now finished. I wish you guys luck. Suddenly, something caught Ibiki's eye, and he stepped back just in time for a ball of cloth to come flying through the window. 2 kunai flew out of the bundle of cloth and stuck to the ceiling, unfurling the cloth, revealing a purple-haired woman wearing a tan trench coat. On the cloth was the text, Second Exam Proctor Mitarashi Anko. You guys, this is no time to be celebrating. The woman, obviously named Mitarashi Anko, exclaimed. I am the examiner for the second test, Mitarashi Anko. The hard part starts here. Are you ready? She shouted and pumped her fist into the air. Ibiki came out from behind the cloth, grasped the atmosphere. Anko blushed, but looked around, raising an eyebrow. Then, she turned to Ibiki. 57? Ibiki, you left 19 teams? The test was too easy this time. Ibiki shrugged. This time, there are a lot of outstanding ones, he said, getting a scoff from Anko. Bah, that's fine. I'll at least cut them in half in the second test, she said, causing the genin to sweat. Then, when they saw her shiver and smirk, they almost freaked out. Ah, I'm getting excited. I'll explain everything once we've changed places. Follow me. The genin were standing in front of a huge forest, which was surrounded by a huge fence. Welcome to the stage for the second test, Training Area 44, Anko said, smirking at them all, also known as the Forest of Death. Looks kind of intimidating, doesn't it? Hinata asked her teammates quietly, while Anko just kept smirking. You'll soon find out why it's called that. Naruto snorted. Like that'll scare us. Anko smiled at him. You're spirited. Quicker than most genin could react, a kunai ended up in her hand, and Naruto only had the chance to see the glint of steel, as his hand flew up on pure instinct and caught the kunai, spinning around to place it at Anko's throat as she blurred into view behind him, looking pleasantly surprised, even more so upon noticing that Sasuke had already unsheathed his chikuto and placed it against the back of her neck. Ho ho, you boys are fast, she said with a grin, looking from Sasuke to Naruto. I guess you're not all talk after all, Sasuke scoffed and sheathed his chikuto again, while Naruto handed the kunai back to Anko, who grinned. Well, looks like we have some potential in this test, Anko said, smirking as she walked to the front of the genin. This should be fun, she said, reaching into her coat and taking out a wad of papers. Now, before we start the second test, there's something I have to pass out. You must sign these agreement forms. What for? Naruto asked as he took the wad of papers she handed him, taking one and handing the stack to Sasuke, who did the same to Hinata. There will be deaths in this one, and if I don't have you sign these, it will all be my responsibility, Anko explained, chuckling. I'm going to explain the second test. Then, you can sign it afterward, and then, each team will check in at that booth behind me. Anko pointed at a booth near the fence, where 3 bored-looking chunins sat, obviously wanting to be somewhere else. I'll now explain the second test. Simply put, you will attempt the ultimate survival. Shikamaru sighed. Survival. This test sucks. First, I'll explain the area in which it will take place, Anko said and unfurled a scroll, showing a map of the forest. Around the Forest of Death are 44 locked gates. Forest, river, and a tower in the center. From the gates to the tower, it's around 10 kilometers. During the survival in here, you will be asked to complete a certain task. Using your many weapons and jutsu, you will compete in a no rules scroll battle. Scroll? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, Anko said with a nod as she held out 2 scrolls. You will fight over these two scrolls, the heaven and earth. There are 57 people here, meaning 19 teams. 10 of you will get the heaven scroll, and the other 9 teams will each get the earth scroll. To pass this test, your team must make it to the tower with both scrolls. So, 9 teams will lose their scrolls. Shikamaru muttered. At least half the teams will definitely fail. But there's a time limit, Anko continued. This second test will last 120 hours. Exactly 5 days. 5 days? Ino exclaimed, wide-eyed. What about dinner? Choji roared, shocked. You're on your own. The forest is full of food. Just watch out for man-eating beasts, poisonous insects, poisonous plants, etc., Anko said, smiling cruelly. And 9 teams passing is not likely. As the days go on, the distance to the goal will become farther, and the time to rest will become shorter. And the area is crawling with enemies. You won't get much sleep. So, not only will some fail by losing the scroll, but some will die from the harshness of the course, she explained, before holding up her hand. Now, I'll talk about what will disqualify you. She raised a finger. First, those that don't make it to the tower with both scrolls within the time limit. She raised another finger. Second, those who lose a teammate or those who have a teammate killed. As a rule, there is no quitting in the middle. You will be in the forest for 5 days or less, depending on when you get to the tower. And one more rule. You must not look inside the scroll until you make it to the tower. What happens if you do? Sasuke asked out of curiosity, getting a smirk from Anko. That will be a surprise for anyone who does. A Chunin will be asked to handle classified information. This is to test your trustworthiness. That's it for the explanations. Exchange the 3 forms for your scroll, then choose a gate to get ready for the start, Anko said, before grinning at them all. A final word of advice. Don't die. Well, no shit. Naruto muttered as the Chunin in the booth covered it with a curtain. It's about time to exchange for the scrolls, one of them announced. You can't tell which team gets which scroll. Or who on the team is carrying it. Sasuke muttered to his teammates as he stared at the covered booth. Yes, everyone's an enemy. Everyone's determined. Hinata mumbled nervously. Hinata, it'll be alright, Naruto said, putting a hand on Hinata's shoulder and smiling at her. We're strong, remember? Besides, with your eyes and my sensor skills, no one will be able to sneak up on us. We'll always have the advantage. Naruto and his team went to the booth, got a heaven scroll, and then headed off, ready to enter gate 12, where an instructor was waiting, unlocking it. The second exam begins now. Was suddenly heard in the speakers, and the instructor opened the gate, allowing them to enter, which they did, speeding inside. After a couple of minutes of running, a scream was already heard. Team 7 stopped at that. It seemed like at least 3 people were in a lot of pain. That's 1 team down, Sasuke muttered, narrowing his eyes. 1 scroll lost. Naruto, don't slack off for even a nanosecond, alright? We all need to constantly be on our guard for this. I started molding chakra before we even stepped through the gate, Naruto said, his hands in his pockets. You don't need to tell me how serious this is. I know where everyone is in this forest. Who's closest? There's a team about half a click to the northwest. They're the closest, but I wouldn't go for them, Naruto said, narrowing his eyes as he stared into the woods. What do you mean? I mean, one of the people on that team has an enormous amount of chakra. Close to my own level, actually. TCH. Is it that Gaara freak? No, this chakra is, if possible, even more sinister than Gaara's. This guy's a definite freak. Naruto said, looking around. Well, I don't sense anyone nearby, so this is probably a good opportunity to sit down and get some strategies down. This immediately caught Sasuke and Hinata's attention, as although Naruto was always willing to use the strategies Sasuke came up with, he was never the one to suggest it. Therefore, they immediately followed his lead and sat down. Well, I think I have him pretty confident now, Naruto muttered softly, glancing at Hinata. Byakugan, my 5 o'clock, 35 meters. Hinata activated her Byakugan, having progressed enough to not need hand seals in order to activate it, and used it to check the spot Naruto had pointed out. There, on a tree branch, she saw the ninja who was stalking them. A Megacure ninja, Hinata said softly. I see no weapons on him, so it's safe to say he specializes in either ninjutsu or genjutsu. He's alone? Sasuke asked, and Naruto nodded, Hinata doing the same. He's probably waiting for a chance to pick us off one by one. He's waiting for us to separate enough to attack. We should get him to come to us. Well, you're the strategist of the team. Make some damn plans, Naruto said loudly, as though an entirely different conversation had just taken place, as he got to his feet, scratching the back of his head. I gotta take a piss. I'll be right back. With that, Naruto headed off to stand behind a tree, pretending to unzip his pants as he leaned back against the tree. His senses were on high alert, so he could easily sense the AIM ninja moving over toward him, then leaping at the blonde, who just smirked. Gotcha, he said softly and looked up at the visibly surprised AIM ninja, just in time for a wooden pole to shoot out of the tree, wrapping around him and pulling him down, slamming his head hard into the tree and knocking him out. Naruto focused his chakra into the tree, and more wood came shooting out of it, wrapping so tightly around the unconscious AIM ninja that it would have been impossible for him to break out. His job done, Naruto headed back to Sasuke and Hinata. Well, that's one enemy down, he announced happily. Did he have a scroll? Hinata asked. These are all three-man teams, yet only one attacker. I doubt they'd let the attacker handle the scroll, Sasuke said, shaking his head. Let's keep moving. The three took off, but after an hour of running, Naruto suddenly signaled for them to stop. Let's talk, he said and promptly sat down. The others looked at each other strangely, but did the same. Naruto sighed. That freak is here, he muttered quietly, making sure the freak with the massive chakra wouldn't hear him. Then, he spoke again, but louder this time. Alright, we need a plan. If we get separated, even if it's one of us, don't trust anyone who appears. Then what do we do? Hinata asked nervously. Sasuke put a hand on his chin, thinking hard. We'll make a code word. If whoever shows up gets the code word wrong, assume they are the enemy, no matter what they look like. Listen carefully. I'll only say this once. The nin song, nin machine. When this is asked, answer with, a large amount of loud enemies is the friend of the shinobi. Hide and remain silent. A shinobi must understand the proper time, when the enemy is tired and ill-prepared. Naruto and Hinata both nodded, telling him that they'd memorized it. In reality, just say we don't have time for code words, Sasuke said quietly as he got up, along with the others. I'll hold the scroll, he said louder. They were about to walk off when Naruto stopped, looking to the east with a look of concentration on his face. Sasuke glanced at him. What's wrong, Naruto? Naruto narrowed his eyes, staring hard into the darkness of the forest for a while, before sighing, shaking his head and saying, it's nothing. I guess it was just my imaga. Naruto's eyes widened when his cheek was suddenly cut by a gust of wind. It's a Fuuten jutsu. Get down, he exclaimed as he rushed his team, pushing them into the bushes, just as a huge blast of wind came through the clearing, sending Naruto flying off. As the blast died down, Sasuke, who was laying in the bushes with Hinata, trying to spot the enemy, sighed. Thanks, Naruto. Seeing no one, they got up, and Hinata activated her Byakugan to scan the area, nudging Sasuke and pointing in the direction the blast had flung Naruto. They both looked, and saw Naruto approaching. Damn, that one hurt, Naruto muttered as he came walking up to them, rubbing his head. If I find whoever did that, I'm gonna introduce him to a whole new world of pain. Naruto-kun, Hinata said softly as she and Sasuke got into a combative stance. Wait a second, the code word. I know, Naruto said, nodding. A large amount of loud enemies is the friend of the shinobi. Hide and remain silent. A shinobi must understand the proper time, when the enemy is tired and ill-prepared. Sasuke smirked at that. Then, without warning, he threw his kunai at Naruto, who went wide-eyed and dodged. What the hell are you doing, you idiot? Naruto growled as he narrowed his eyes. So, it's someone who can dodge my attacks. Naruto smirked, and was suddenly enveloped by smoke. Impressive that you knew, came a feminine voice from the smoke. When the smoke cleared, they saw the straw hat wearing Kusa ninja standing where Naruto had once been. How did you know that I was a fake? Naruto sensed your freakishly large chakra supply a mile off, Sasuke said, smirking right back. There was no way he couldn't sense you so close to us. We knew you were listening in, so while we said the code word would be the nin song, we actually made it something else. The man chuckled as he removed his straw hat. I see, neither tired nor ill-prepared, are we? He asked with a smirk. This will be more fun than I thought. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, Naruto was on the ground, panting slightly. His forearms had several cuts on them, and the abdomen of his shirt was torn in some places, along with his legs. In front of him, the ground was completely torn apart, and several wooden walls had also been completely torn up. That was one powerful jutsu, he muttered as he sighed. Even when I blocked it with my Mokuton, it still managed to cut me. Naruto got up, staring down the trail of destruction caused by the jutsu. But that wasn't something a genin could accomplish. Hell, most of my jutsu aren't even that strong. His surroundings got darker, and he looked down at the ground to see a large shadow above him, and he looked up, finding the biggest snake he'd ever seen staring down at him. He stared into its eyes, and suddenly went wide-eyed, when the snake's tail came flying at him. Naruto jumped into the air with a yell of something that sounded like Hufflerger Berber, in time for the ground to pretty much explode from the power of the hit with the tail. The snake coiled up and sprung at Naruto, its maw opened and ready to swallow him. Unable to dodge in the air, Naruto growled and formed a serpent seal. Suddenly, his cheeks puffed out, and he smirked. "Take this," he thought as he fired a high-pressure jet of water from his mouth. The water cut the snake right down the middle, causing it to split, and completely miss crashing into Naruto, who landed gracefully. Suddenly, Naruto's eyes widened as his senses picked up on a massive amount of killer intent, coming from where Team 7 had been before the jutsu hit them. What is this massive ki? He thought as he looked down at his hand. It was shaking violently. Even at this distance, this is 20 times worse than Zabuza and Kakashi combined. Meanwhile, with Sasuke and Hinata, the two were staring into the eyes of the scary Kusa ninja. They'd both seen some sort of image of their own death, causing Sasuke to vomit. Genjutsu, Sasuke thought as he stared wide-eyed at the Kusa ninja. And no, this is just fear. The killing intent in his eyes is causing us to see an image of death. Who is this guy? Hinata. Sasuke glanced at his teammate, to see tears flowing down her cheeks as she trembled violently. This is bad. We must run. Otherwise, there's only death. The Kusa ninja chuckled. You can no longer move. Sasuke gripped the kunai in his hand tightly as he shook with fear. No, I can. His arm moved a little, and he stared down at his hand. Move, 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 move. The Kusa ninja smirked as he raised two kunai, casually flicking them at the two genin, making Sasuke's eyes widen. Damn it, move. Suddenly, Sasuke stabbed the kunai into his thigh and rushed at Hinata, getting her out of the way of the kunai's path, before jumping off to hide in the trees. The Kusa ninja walked over to the blood splatter that resulted from the stabbing with mild interest, before smirking, looking up into the trees. To injure his own body to erase the feeling of fear with pain. Though, he's no ordinary prey. Meanwhile, Sasuke was sitting in a big tree with Hinata, ripping the kunai out of his thigh with a grunt. Sasuke-kun, are you Aoi? Hinata started, only for Sasuke to cover her mouth, looking down on the forest floor. We must run before we are found again. But how? How can we run away? He thought, still trembling with fear. That guy. For Sasuke-kun to panic this much. Hinata thought, staring at Sasuke in shock. I've never seen him like this. Suddenly, she noticed something, and tried to speak, but Sasuke was still covering her mouth. Removing it, she spoke up. Sasuke-kun, snake. Sasuke turned, and saw a huge snake come down at them. They both jumped away, and the snake set its sights on Sasuke. Damn it, I was panicking so much, I didn't notice the snake. Sasuke thought as the snake wrapped around the tree branch, before shooting off toward Sasuke. Sasuke's eyes widened as he stared into the snake's eyes, and felt the same killer intent as before. He let out a fearful cry as he threw 8 shuriken at the open maw of the snake with incredible force. The shuriken tore through the snake's head, and it stopped its charge, falling down and smashing against a tree branch, covering it in blood. Sasuke and Hinata's eyes widened when the scales on the snake were torn open, and a person rose from it. It was the Kusa ninja. You guys shouldn't relax, even for a moment. Prey should always be trying their best to run away. He trailed off as his tongue came out of his mouth, licking his lips. In the presence of a predator, that is. Like a snake, the Kusa ninja's legs stretched like rubber, and he wrapped around the branch Sasuke had landed on, charging the Uchiha. However, he stopped when a kunai dug into the branch, with an exploding note hanging from the ring. What? The note exploded, sending the Kusa ninja flying. Sasuke sighed with relief. Naruto, he muttered. Naruto, don't be a hero. This guy is different. TCH, came Naruto's voice from his left, making his head snap in that direction to see Naruto standing there. Look at you. Too afraid to even notice me approaching. So, you got past my snake, Naruto-kun? The Kusa nin asked, standing on the forest floor and looking up at them. Naruto squatted, his elbows against his knees, as he looked down at the ninja. Sasuke, he spoke softly. If we run, this guy will just pick us off one by one. We have to fight right here. We have to give it our all. Don't be an idiot, Sasuke barked. You, of all people, should feel how. Sasuke stopped, as Naruto had suddenly shot up, grabbed his collar and slapped him. Hey, you friggin' idiot, snap out of it. You're acting like a little crybaby. Sasuke's eyes were wide with shock, still reeling from the surprise of actually getting slapped. Sure, he could handle being punched, kicked, and even stabbed, but slapped? He blinked owlishly a couple of times, but then smiled softly. Gotta give Naruto credit, he has no common sense whatsoever. Although, in this situation, common sense would probably just get in the way. Thanks, Naruto. A smirk made its way onto Sasuke's face as his Sharingan activated, and he turned his head to stare down at the Kusa nin as well. Alright, you moron, we'll do it your way for once. Another slap sounded, and everyone could see a wide-eyed Sasuke reeling from yet another slap to the face. The hell are you doing? Sasuke barked angrily, but Naruto grinned. Well, I had you in this position, I just couldn't resist. Sasuke twitched. Damn, Naruto can blow the fear out of any situation, he thought, sighing. Then, he looked at Hinata, who was standing some distance away, looking unsure what to do. Hinata, you're our backup and support. If one of us gets injured, get right to healing it, alright? Alright, Sasuke-kun, Hinata said, nodding. So, what have you got? Naruto asked as he let go of Sasuke and looked down at the Kusa nin again. Sasuke closed his eyes and gathered his thoughts for a second. It was obvious that the Kusa nin was just toying with them, or he would have attacked a long time ago. What was his game? He's got intense chakra. He can manipulate it well, given that powerful Fuuten ninjutsu he used, and that freaky stretch thing he does with his body and tongue. Not to mention he managed to swallow his freaking Earth Scroll. And he can summon, Naruto supplied. Since he could summon a freakishly large snake and sick it on me, there's a good chance he can summon more. A guy that well-trained in ninjutsu and chakra manipulation. Chances are he's just as good at genjutsu, which would probably make taijutsu his weak point, hopefully, unless he's well-rounded enough to be good at that, too, Sasuke concluded, which made the Kusa nin chuckle creepily. An apt analysis and a correct one, he said, smirking up at them. Although taijutsu is my weakest point, I'm by no means a slouch, and it would be foolish of you to assume such a thing. Now that you have mustered your courage, I expect you to give this your all. Triple rodeo, you think? Naruto asked, to which Sasuke nodded. In this setting? Definitely. Naruto grinned and formed a serpent seal. Suddenly, wooden spikes shot out of the ground under the Kusa nin, forcing him to jump up onto the trunk of a tree behind him. So, the rumors are true. Mokuton ninjutsu. More spikes shot out of the tree the Kusa nin was standing on, making him jump off again. In the air, he noticed Sasuke above him, finishing a chain of hand seals in a tiger seal. Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu. Fire element. Dragon fire technique. Sasuke called out as he brought his hand to his mouth and blew a stream of fire at the Kusa nin, whose eyes widened as the flame burned hot enough to turn white. The fire impacted with the ninja and smashed him down into the forest floor, whereupon he was impaled by 6 wooden spikes, only to disappear in a poof of smoke. Cage Bunshin. Sasuke growled out through gritted teeth as he landed on a tree branch, looking around. So, where's the real one? Sasuke, above you. Naruto yelled out, and Sasuke's eyes widened. Before he even looked up, he was already flashing through hand seals. Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu. He called out as he leaned his head back and saw the Kusa nin diving at him. He blew another stream of white-hot flames at him, but the ninja was prepared for it, yanking a ninja wire in his hand and pulling him out of the way of the fire. What the Kusa nin didn't count on, however, was that as he flew through the air, Naruto appeared above him, his fist cocked back. Eat shit. Naruto roared as he drove his hand into the Kusa-nin's chest, sending him rocketing down into the ground. A crater formed when the Kusa-nin landed, kicking up a large cloud of dust. However, when it cleared, the Kusa-nin slowly rose to his feet, chuckling softly. I see, that was quite a powerful attack. You gather as much chakra in your fist as possible, and you release it outward as soon as your fist hits the target. Much like the venerable Tsunadeheim. With your chakra stores, I would have thought it impossible to reach such chakra control at your age. Naruto and Sasuke landed in front of the Kusa-nin, staring coldly at him. Naruto went through some hand seals, and more wood shot from the ground, trying to ensnare him, but he jumped out of the way. This kid, the Kusa-nin thought, staring at Naruto. Could he be the Kyuubi brat? He certainly looks like Minato-kun and Kushina. Well, if that's the case, I can put a stop to his massive attack power by disrupting his chakra flow. For that, I need to get closer. The Kusa-nin dodged yet another wooden spike, and found that Sasuke had taken this moment to close the distance between them, swiping furiously at him with his sword. These brats are wearing chakra weights, and yet they still possess this much speed and strength. The Kusa-nin thought as he dodged slash after slash, a smirk appearing on his face. What monsters! I shudder to think of what kind of ninja they will become, given a few years to grow. The Kusa-nin went wide-eyed as his back thumped against a tree trunk, and several wooden poles shot out of it, wrapping around him. I got you now, Sasuke exclaimed, slashing his sword and swiping it clean through the Kusa-nin's neck and the tree behind him. Only for this one to also disappear in a puff of smoke. The real Kusa-nin shot out of a bush, heading straight for Naruto. His tongue came out of his mouth, stretching to many times its original length and wrapping around a visibly surprised Naruto. What the hell? Naruto growled out as the tongue, tightly wrapped around him, reached down and pulled up his shirt, exposing the seal on his stomach. Oh, the seal is clearly visible? The Kusa-nin asked, tilting his head to the side as he went through a few hand seals. Then, each finger on his right hand lit up with a purple energy, and he slammed his hand into Naruto's stomach with a cry of, Gogyu Fuin, 5-element seal. He was greatly surprised when his hand just passed straight through Naruto, and the blonde slowly vanished from view. His eyes widened in shock. What's this? This wasn't a bunshin, and a cage bunshin doesn't vanish like that. What? Slowly, the surprised look vanished from his face as his tongue retreated back into his mouth, which curved into a smirk. I see, so that's the triple rodeo? He asked out loud as he placed his hands in a ram seal and called out, Kai, release. The surroundings changed to show that he was once more back in the crater, and Naruto was in front of him, coming at him with a punch, and behind him was Sasuke, making to stab him in the back. The Kusa-nin twisted his body out of the path of the sword, touching it with his hand to change its path, doing the same with Naruto's fist. The two genin were greatly surprised when they found their attacks directed at their friend, and they only managed to redirect them at the last second. Sasuke's blade cut deeply into Naruto's side, but nothing fatal, while Naruto's blow grazed Sasuke's cheek, which in itself packed enough power that he felt a crack open up in his cheekbone. The two genin stood there in a shocked clinch of sorts, their eyes wide in shock. Impossible, Naruto muttered. Without his Sharingan, not even Kakashi can see through that until it's too late. Sasuke muttered as they broke their clinch, Naruto holding his side and Sasuke feeling his cheek swelling up. They turned toward the Kusa-nin, who was smirking at them both. You come at the target with a barrage of ninjutsu and taijutsu attacks. When the target is sufficiently distracted, Naruto-kun takes their attention off you with his Mokuton ninjutsu, while you weave a genjutsu around the target, convincing him that he's still fighting, while in actuality he is standing quite still, allowing the two of you to come in for the killing blow. The Kusa-nin said and raised his hands. Naruto and Sasuke tensed, but were surprised when the ninja just started applauding slowly. Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun, you are both exceptional shinobi. I applaud your strength. However, I am afraid we will have to stop playing now. He put his hands in a strange seal, and his neck suddenly extended, his head shooting forward at an amazing speed and biting down on Sasuke's neck, making him cry out in pain and collapse to his knees, clutching at the bit. What is this? He growled out, grunting in pain. Sasuke, Naruto called out in concern, kneeling next to his friend, while the Kusa Nin's neck started bulging, and he opened his mouth to show an earth scroll coming out of his mouth. He took it and placed it on the ground. This scroll, that mark. Presents for managing to amuse me, the Kusa Nin said as he started sinking into the ground. I am Orochimaru. If you want power, come seek me out. Sasuke clutched at his shoulder tighter and cried out again, louder this time. Hinata landed softly behind them, her eyes wide in concern. Please, lay him on the ground. I'll treat him right away. Naruto struggled to take Sasuke's shirt off and lay him face down on the ground so that the bite mark was clearly visible. This isn't a wound, Naruto exclaimed, his eyes widening upon seeing the 3 tomos on the back of Sasuke's shoulder. This is a seal. A seal? Hinata asked, her eyes widening as well. What do we do, Naruto-kun? Treat his cheekbone. I must have fractured it, Naruto muttered, placing his finger against the seal and closing his eyes. Damn it, this thing is filling him up with that freak's vile chakra. I'm not very advanced in fuinjutsu yet, but… Naruto gritted his teeth and took out a kunai, slicing open his palm and allowing the blood to run down to the tip of his fingers, whereupon he started writing seals around that vile-smelling seal that Orochimaru guy put on Sasuke. Once he was done, he started flashing through seals faster than ever before. Fuinjutsu. Doku Fujicomb, sealing technique. Poison containment, he called out as he pressed his hand against the seal, watching as the seals he had drawn started glowing and crawled across Sasuke's skin to form a circle around the seal. Sasuke grunted with pain again as Hinata put an ointment on his swollen cheek. Naruto. What did you do? He grunted out through gritted teeth. I made this seal a couple of weeks ago. Naruto panted out. That seal was incomplete, and had drained him. I originally made it to contain poisons in case one of us got hurt by a poisoned weapon. However, I made some adjustments to it as I applied it. It should keep that vile chakra at bay for a while. Well, hopefully at least until we get to the tower. The Gigi should know something better. I have done all I can for the fracture. Hinata mumbled as Naruto helped Sasuke sit up, clutching at his shoulder. The ointment will first work on the external injuries, and then work its way into the bone, mending it. Thanks, Hinata. Sasuke mumbled softly as Naruto got up and walked over to the scroll, picking it up. Now, take care of Naruto. Naruto-kun? I'm fine, Naruto said. Don't be a moron. I cut you deep. And even if I hadn't, you still got hurt by that Fuuten ninjutsu from earlier, right? Sasuke snapped, glaring at Naruto, who huffed and looked away. I know why you're acting tough. You want to make sure I'm alright first. However, Naruto, I also want to make sure you're alright. You've done all you can for me. Now let Hinata take care of your damn wounds. Naruto huffed again, but came over and sat down nonetheless, taking off his shirt. The plate armor underneath was deeply scratched, but hadn't let any of the wind cut through. The same couldn't be said for his shoulders, arms, or his side, though. Well, in all fairness, the wound in his side was from Sasuke's sword. Naruto took off his mesh shirt, and Hinata, her eyes wide with worry, immediately got to work treating his injuries. Who was that freak? Naruto muttered, narrowing his eyes at the spot where that Orochimaru guy had sank into the ground. Orochimaru, did he say? What a weird-ass name. Oro. Sasuke mumbled, having been in too much pain to register the name when the man introduced himself. Orochimaru? You know him? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow, and Sasuke nodded, his eyes wide. I've heard that name before. Hinata mumbled. Oh, Orochimaru. Isn't he one of the legendary Sannin? Sannin. Naruto repeated, his eyes widening as well. That Orochimaru? So he was toying with us. Sasuke muttered. That guy. He could have killed us in the blink of an eye if he wanted to. And here we were, thinking we were great, big, powerful badasses. Naruto muttered, gritting his teeth. Turns out there are bigger badasses than us out there.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.